Chapter 4499. Now that she knew her own situation, she had landed on the Dragon Martial continent. Other than the dragon warriors of the Dragon God clan, there were also monsters. It was impossible for her to leave alone. So she had to rely on Kong Shinmu's power. She could tell that Kong Shinmu wanted to ask her about the ancient dragon of annihilation. As long as she kept Kong Shinmu hanging, she might be able to find a chance to leave. She thought that the gap in the sky barrier above the Dragon Martial continent must have been blocked. How difficult would it be to leave this place and go to the void crack? It was impossible to do it with her own strength. If she could convince Kong Shinmu, it might not be a bad thing for her. So she was willing to be held hostage by Kong Shinmu. However, when she thought of the black robe that Kong Shinmu had put on her, she felt a little unhappy. This little dragon warrior of the Dragon God clan had seen her whole body. How hateful! As long as she could leave the Dragon Martial continent, she would definitely kill Kong Shinmu to vent her hatred. Kong Shinmu kept taking her up, passing through layer after layer of rock. There was even a time when she had to dig a hole by herself. After about 4 hours, the two of them finally rushed out of the ground and came to a dense forest. They were dozens of miles away from the crater where they had fallen. The crater had not erupted for a long time, and the flow of lava underground was not frequent. So there was a lush forest dozens of miles away. It was night time, and they could hear the roars of monsters everywhere in the forest, making the quiet forest a little dangerous. My name is Xueqi. What about you? The little princess seemed to want to build a good relationship with Kong Shinmu, so she took the initiative to tell him her name. Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu said directly. He would never have thought that he would be with a princess of the demon god race, who had controlled the void demonic creature not long ago, and had even exchanged names with each other. However, since he was going to ask her some questions, it was only right for him to exchange names. It would be weird if he didn't even know her name. While gathering information, Kong Shinmu also planned to raise his cultivation level. As for breaking through to the next realm, that would take even longer. After all, the black dragon's consciousness in his body was already in a deep slumber. In a situation where he could not use his devouring power, he did not dare to break through to the next realm. Fighting against 2 Nirvana beasts, he definitely needed to unleash his full strength. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to defeat his opponents and complete the condensation of Nirvana energy. Xueqi, as long as you tell me everything you know, I can take you away from the Martial Dragon continent. After Kong Shinmu said his name, he went straight to the point. Humph. Do you think I only want to leave the Martial Dragon continent? Xueqi glanced at him, snorted, and said, The ancient world annihilation dragon's consciousness is in your body, and it has become your awakened divine dragon blood. If we leave you alone, you will definitely become a threat to the entire world in the future. In your opinion, what should we do? Kong Shinmu asked. Drive out the ancient world annihilation dragon's consciousness and destroy it. Xueqi said matter-of-factly. She was carried by Kong Shinmu like a harmless little chick. Her cultivation level was about the first tier of the Nirvana Tribulation realm, and she had just passed her first Nirvana Tribulation. Although her ancient demon god bloodline was of a very high grade, and it had even reached the level of the Dragon Emperor, her strength was definitely not as good as Kong Shinmu's. Even if Kong Shinmu did not transform into a dragon warrior, he would be able to crush her. After all, her cultivation level was far inferior to Kong Shinmu's. She was only 17 years old this year. If not for the fact that she was a princess of the demon god race and had been brought up well from a young age, where all kinds of cultivation resources were like food to her, she would not have looked so old. As for her noble and charming temperament, that had to do with her identity. She was younger than Kong Shinmu, and even though she was the princess of the demon god clan, her cultivation level was not very high. The elders of the demon god clan hoped that she could build the best foundation. Xueqi was being carried by Kong Shinmu. She raised her head with some difficulty and looked at Kong Shinmu. Of course, if the ancient world annihilation dragon's consciousness is driven out, you will likely lose its blood inheritance, and you will lose your cultivation level. You will definitely not agree to that. Of course. If I lose my strength, how can I resist the invasion of the demon god clan? Kong Shinmu snorted coldly. Xueqi did not speak. She did not know what to say. Anyway, she was very clear that Kong Shinmu had a deep prejudice against her. For a moment, she could not think of a way to get rid of the world annihilation dragon's consciousness in Kong Shinmu's body. The two of them walked in the dark forest. Along the way, there were no monsters that were stupid enough to attack them. "Where are you taking me?" Xueqi asked. "We are going to the nearest dragon warrior city. I will get you a change of clothes, eat something, and then we will have a good chat." As soon as Kong Shinmu's voice fell, he brought her out of the forest. Jingyue City. It was a small city in the Moonlight Dragon country. The city lord was only a holy dragon, which was the same level as the dragon prison city of the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty. Jingyue City was located outside the forest where Kong Shinmu and the others were. It was the closest city. Kong Shinmu brought Xueqi into the city. At night, Jingyue City was really quiet. The bright moon in the sky shone a gentle moonlight. There were not many people on the road, and only a few dragon warriors could be seen flying back into the city. These dragon warriors were all ordinary adventurous dragon warriors. They only had the blood inheritance of the sky dragon or even the true dragon. In a city like Dragon Prison City, these dragon warriors were already considered very strong. Void demons, dragon martial continent. These things were too far away for them. They could not even see the entire Moonlight Dragon country. There were fewer dragon warriors traveling at night, because it was more dangerous at night in places where demon beasts roamed. Kong Shinmu brought Xueqi into the city, but he did not continue to carry her. He also asked her to change into a black robe outside the city, so that people would not be suspicious if she was wet all over. Moreover, she had been wearing a wet black robe, showing off her perfect and graceful figure. She kept swaying in front of Kong Shinmu, which made Kong Shinmu feel a little thirsty. It was a little inappropriate. After entering the city, the two found an inn and booked a room. "Now you can tell me how much you know about the ancient dragon of annihilation. Tell me everything," Kong Shinmu asked in the room. Along the way, Xueqi was relatively honest. To be honest, she seemed to be a little curious about the dragon martial continent. After entering the city, she looked around and studied the decorations and furniture in the room. She was a little curious about these things. After all, the things here were very different from the things in the demon god temple. She did not intend to escape, and Kong Shinmu knew this, so he brought her into the city. Kong Shinmu even wanted to go all the way to the Yen Dragon Emperor dynasty to check out the dragon sealing abyss. Maybe he could find something there. Chapter 4500. Before receiving the news, Kong Shinmu did not intend to deal with Xueqi. It would not be a problem for the demon god princess to live in the dragon martial continent for a year and a half. If these things were not so sensitive, Kong Shinmu could even ask Ran to find Yaji and ask her to open up her authority to help him look for it. Unfortunately, looking for this thing at this time might make Yaji suspicious. If the dragon sealing abyss was really as Xueqi said, then the black dragon consciousness in his body must be dealt with as soon as possible. As for how to deal with it, Kong Shinmu did not know. However, he did not want to let the black dragon consciousness continue to grow, and he did not want to lose all his power. It was really a dilemma. Of course, all of this might not be true. He had to wait for Ran to find him, and then Kong Shinmu would ask her to find some information. Moreover, it had to be done in one night. Xueqi told him everything she knew about the ancient world annihilation dragon. Of course, Kong Shinmu did not know which of her words were true and which were false, so he could only choose to use them as a reference. The ancient world annihilation dragon was called the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. It was said that it could devour everything in the universe and turn it into its own power. This characteristic was somewhat similar to Kong Shinmu's devouring power, but it was also different. At least, Kong Shinmu's devouring power was not that powerful now. The chaotic heaven-devouring dragon wanted to increase its own power, so it devoured many small worlds in ancient times. It devoured these small worlds together with space. The Dragon God clan was a human clan that raised divine dragons. They were both humans like the Demon God clan, but the object of worship was different. The Dragon God clan worshipped divine dragons, while the Demon God clan worshipped ancient demon gods. They both cultivated the bloodline power of divine dragons and ancient demon gods to improve their own strength. As for the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon, it was a real divine dragon and was worshipped and supported by many members of the Dragon God clan. It was a pity that the chaotic heaven-swallowing dragon's tribe was swallowed by him and became a part of his own power. Later, before the chaos heaven-swallowing dragon had fully matured, it was sealed in the dragon sealing abyss by an ancient demon god powerhouse of the demon god race. It was reinforced with 100 layers of restrictions. Without external help, the Chaos Heaven-swallowing dragon would definitely not be able to escape. It was extremely difficult to completely destroy the Chaos Heaven-devouring dragon. At the very least, even the ancient demon gods could not do it. They could only seal it. As the princess of the demon god clan, Xueqi knew more about the affairs of the two clans. Now, the divine dragons that the dragon god clan worshipped were all at the level of the ancestral dragon. However, the ancestral dragon had not sent their bloodline power down for a long time. At the moment, the strongest worshippers of the dragon god clan were only at the level of the supreme divine dragon, unable to break through to the level of the ancestral dragon. At the same time, the demon god race was in a similar situation. The ancient demon god had not appeared for a long time. Only the Void Saint Demon Ball seemed to have the remnant thoughts of an ancient demon god left in it. The Void Holy Magic Sphere sensed the aura of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. That's why it went all out to kill him and put him to sleep. The Void Holy Magic Sphere is in your hands now, right? If you return it to me, I might be able to awaken the ancient demon god inside and ask him to help you think of a way. Xueqi said. That's impossible. Kong Shinmu shook his head. The Void Holy Magic Sphere was a sacred item of the demon god clan. If he returned it to her, who knew what would happen? At the very least, the ability to summon void monsters to cross space was enough to destroy the entire Dragon Martial continent. He could not hand over the Void Holy Magic Sphere to her. The power of the Void Holy Magic Sphere seems to require Xueqi's blood to activate. Kong Shinmu looked at Xueqi and pondered. Without Xueqi's blood, the power of the Void Holy Magic Sphere could not be used. Even if there was the remnant thoughts of an ancient demon god inside, it would still be the same. Perhaps Kong Shinmu could wait for the remnant thoughts to wake up and then see the situation. At that time, he just had to prevent Xueqi from coming into contact with the Void Holy Magic Sphere. She would not be able to cause any trouble. After resting for a night, Kong Shinmu took Xueqi to the streets. Xueqi, who was wearing a loose black robe, looked a little strange. Kong Shinmu had no choice but to go to a clothing store and buy some women's clothing. Are these the clothes that the women of the Dragon God clan wear? It feels a little strange. It's so hard to wear. How do I tie this rope? She studied it for a long time in the room of the inn, and Kong Shinmu was almost annoyed to death. However, Kong Shinmu could not take her away. He had left some marks in Jingyue City. If Ran Ran came to Jingyue City, she should be able to find these marks and know that he was in Jingyue City. Kong Shinmu was waiting for Ran Ran to find him. He knew that Ran Ran would not leave him alone. In the current situation, he had no one else he could trust. He had to let Ran Ran go back to Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy and search for information about the ancient Dragon of Annihilation. Previously, when he was at Donghuang Yonggu College, he did search for some information. However, he did not have enough authority at that time, so he could not find a lot of information. Now, Ran Ran was at Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, and she was a student in the Migres district. Although she did not have the highest authority, as long as her strength increased, she might be able to reach the Tianxian district in a year. Students in the Tianxian district were already core students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, and they had enough authority to read all the ancient books and information of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy. She was precisely here to search for information in secret, and she could not give herself away. Half a month later, Kong Shinmu was still staying in the inn. During the day, he would bring Xueqi to the training guild in the city to accept some training missions, such as killing some demonic beasts and the like. Such training missions were very easy for Kong Shinmu. Even the old missions that had been issued in Jingyue City for a long time, and no one had been able to complete them, were extremely easy for Kong Shinmu. After all, the targets for these missions were, at most, sky demons or saint demons. As for powerful demonic beasts at the saint demon level, Kong Shinmu did not need to transform into a dragon martial artist to completely kill them with his physical strength. Whenever this happened, Xueqi would clap her hands and cheer from behind. She had changed into the local clothing of the dragon martial continent, and she looked much more simple. During the time that she had been with Kong Shinmu, she had seen many local customs and practices in the dragon martial continent. Of course, she could not fight every time they went on a mission. Kong Shinmu did not allow her to fight, lest she emitted some demonic aura and attracted the attention of the people from the 4 dragon martial arts academies. Now, Kong Shinmu still had to keep her and ask her about the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon in detail. If she was captured by the academies, many clues would be lost. Kong Shinmu could not possibly pass through the void chasm and go to the demon god clan's territory to ask for information. Could he? The continuous training had allowed Kong Shinmu to earn a lot of gold coins from the Moonlight Dragon country, and he had also made a name for himself in this place. Chapter 4501. In the end, Kong Shinmu didn't act rashly. He stayed in Jingyue City for another 3 days. Finally, when he and Xueqi returned to the inn, they saw Ran Ran, who was dressed in black, waiting for them. When she saw Kong Shinmu, Ran Ran's eyes lit up. She had found this inn by following the markings. After waiting for half a day, Kong Shinmu finally returned. However, when she saw Xueqi, who was beside Kong Shinmu, her expression changed. Isn't this the princess of the Void Devil race? Why is she with Kong Shinmu? However, she also knew that the inn's entrance wasn't the place to talk. After exchanging glances with Kong Shinmu, she followed Kong Shinmu to the inn's room. In the front hall of the inn, there were manservants and other guests. They were familiar with Kong Shinmu and Xueqi. At least, they often saw them going out together. Now that they saw another beautiful girl looking for Kong Shinmu, their expressions became a little strange. This young man is actually so romantic? Would he be able to handle 2 beauties by himself? If he was a nobody, there would probably be people jumping up and down to deal with Kong Shinmu and snatch the 2 beauties away. Unfortunately, many people had seen the training missions Kong Shinmu had accepted in Jingyue City recently. Those were missions that no one had been able to complete. In the end, Kong Shinmu had finished them all. Moreover, it seemed like he had done it very easily. Even the tyrannical sacred demon in the forest outside the city was killed by Kong Shinmu and his demon core was retrieved. Under such circumstances, no one in the entire Jingyue City dared to provoke Kong Shinmu. Even the city lord was planning to invite Kong Shinmu to a banquet. However, this matter hadn't been decided yet. After all, Kong Shinmu's origins were unknown. His background had to be investigated thoroughly. Kong Shinmu brought Ran Ran and Xueqi back to the room in the courtyard. This place was relatively safe. Kong Shinmu had already checked the room, and there were no listening arrays in the room. Why is Brother Jiang with her? After entering the courtyard, Ran Ran looked at Xueqi with hostility. What's wrong with being with me? Xueqi immediately glared at them. It's your honor to be with me, humph. Kong Shinmu looked at the 2 women who were about to quarrel, and suddenly had a headache. He took the 2 women's hands and pulled them away, and then explained to Ran Ran, I have a use for her. Maybe she can help me in some things. What do you mean by keeping me alive? When Xueqi heard this, he was immediately displeased. He snorted and said, You're clearly the one who needs my help. Don't you know how troublesome the black dragon's consciousness in your body is? You have to rely on me to solve this problem. Black dragon's consciousness? Ran Ran hadn't heard Kong Shinmu mention this before. She was a little confused and a little sad. She didn't know about this, but Xueqi, the demon princess, actually knew about it. Could it be that Brother Jiang and this demon princess had a good relationship? Kong Shinmu felt a headache coming on. He didn't have any experience in dealing with women. In this kind of situation, it would be better for the 2 women to gang up and beat him up. Of course, this was impossible. If Ran Ran wanted to beat Kong Shinmu, it would only be possible when she was cultivating the body-refining dragon martial arts. Otherwise, Ran Ran couldn't bear to hurt Kong Shinmu even a little bit. In short, this black dragon's consciousness is like this. Kong Shinmu explained the general situation to Ran Ran, including Xueqi's explanation and Kong Shinmu's own guesses. Moreover, Kong Shinmu said that he had already taken everything from Xueqi's body, including the Void Holy Magic Orb. Moreover, the Void Holy Magic Orb was currently in a dormant state. As long as he didn't let it come into contact with the Demon God Princess, even if the Void Holy Magic Orb's consciousness woke up, it wouldn't be able to borrow any power. After hearing Kong Shinmu's detailed explanation, Ran Ran was satisfied. Then Brother Jiang won't return to Dragon Martial Academy for now? Ran Ran was a little depressed about this. How's the situation at Dragon Martial Academy now? Kong Shinmu asked. Dragon Martial Academy has shifted their main battlefield to outside the Void Disk. With the Void Disk as their base, They've already hunted down countless void demons in the past half a month. As she said this, Ran Ran looked at Xueqi arrogantly. Xueqi didn't care at all. Tisk, void demons are the demons that our demon god race rears. It's just like how your dragon god race rears pigs. No matter how many of your pigs are killed, do you feel the pinch? Oh, you might feel the pinch. After all, you still have to use pigs as food, and void demons are like tools to us. They aren't even comparable to the demonic weapons that we forge. Do you understand? This made Ran Ran so angry that she gritted her teeth, but she couldn't say a word. Indeed, void demons were nothing to the demon god race. It didn't matter how many died. To them, it was extremely easy to nurture void demons. They just needed a certain period of time. But in the process of fighting against void demons, it wasn't just the Dragon Martial Academy students. Many of the Dragon Martial Continent's Dragon Emperor powerhouses had been sacrificed. None of the void monsters that are attacking the void disk will be able to escape. Ran Ran said calmly, "The situation is basically stable. They can't break the void disk and can't come to the Dragon Martial Continent. So don't even think of escaping, Demon God Princess. It's impossible. Listen to Big Brother Jiang. What does it have to do with you whether I listen or not?" Xueqi looked at Ran Ran unhappily. "Not only am I disobedient, but I also want him to listen to me. Bite me." When she said this before Ran Ran could do anything, Kong Shinmu knocked her head heavily. "Nonsense. Just solve the problem for me. After you solve my problem, if I'm in a good mood, I might let you go." To Kong Shinmu, Xueqi was a captive. How could she have the right to speak to Ran Ran like this? So Kong Shinmu taught her a lesson. This almost made her cry. As for Ran Ran, she was as happy as a victor. "All right, bring these things back to exchange for demon hunting points." Kong Shinmu thought about it and handed the 9 Demon General Demon Cores and 2 Demon Commander Demon Cores to Ran Ran. These 11 Demon Cores should be able to exchange for a lot of demon hunting points. Use them for yourselves. Work hard and improve your strength. These. When Ran Ran saw these demon cores, she was shocked. The value of these demon cores was too high. Chapter 4502. Ran Ran caught the 11 devil cores in a daze, not knowing what to do. "These are all for us?" Ran Ran knew that Kong Shinmu was not giving these demonic cores to her alone, but to her, Xiao Yuhua, and the others. There were 4 of them, and each of them could get a quarter. This was the best way to increase their group's strength. "Not bad." Kong Shinmu nodded. "These are not much. They were all from Xueqi's guards. I still have what I got from Xueqi, much more than this." Ran Ran obediently received the 11 demonic cores. Xueqi gritted her teeth. She did not expect that Kong Shinmu would distribute these demonic cores in front of her. Wasn't this provoking her? If not for her low cultivation level, she would have snatched them back long ago. This was too despicable. The dignified princess of the demon god race had been robbed of everything she had, and the person who robbed her was speaking frankly in front of her, giving the demonic cores to other women. This was simply infuriating. "Tsk." Xueqi snorted and forced a disdainful expression. "This princess can have as many of these demonic cores as I want. Only you treat them as treasures. You can take as many as you want. What's with this jealous tone?" Ran Ran did not want to be outdone, and directly replied. "All right, this is her guard's demonic weapon. You take it as well." Kong Shinmu thought about it and took out the black dagger of the void demonic man. This black dagger was not Xueqi's. Its grade was not as high, but it was definitely at the level of a divine dragon weapon. Those who did not cultivate the ancient demon god bloodline would not be able to use this black dagger. However, people could extract the magic crystal from it and fuse it into the dragon weapon to strengthen the dragon weapon. It could also give the dragon weapon the effect of restraining demons. It was precisely because demonic crystals had the effect of restraining demonic creatures that the demon god race could easily control the void demonic creatures, and the void demonic creatures would not dare to resist. Even if the void saint magic ball swallowed all the high-ranked demon generals like before, those high-ranked demon generals wouldn't have the slightest thought of resisting. When the demon weapon was taken out, Xueqi's eyes widened. Her small mouth opened and closed twice, but in the end no words came out. She turned to the side and thought of the guard who had always been protecting her. Now that guard of hers had been devoured by the black dragon's consciousness in Kong Shinmu's body while he was protecting her. She was no longer in the mood to argue with Ran Ran. Not long after, she turned her head and looked at the dagger that Ran Ran had taken from her with a pair of big watery eyes. She said with some reluctance, "Kong Shinmu, why don't you keep this dagger for me? He protected me since I was young. I watched him get killed, but..." Speaking up to this point, she felt a lump in her throat. Kong Shinmu looked at her and thought for a while. "That's fine. Although you won't have a chance to take it back even if it's with me. If you have a way to help me settle the matter of the chaotic heaven-swallowing dragon, I can consider returning it to you." "Many thanks." Xueqi nodded, feeling somewhat grateful. The demonic wind was devoured by the chaotic heaven-swallowing dragon. "Naturally, I have to help you think of a way to get rid of it." "Then take this thing." Kong Shinmu thought for a while and put away the black dagger. Instead, he took out Xueqi's black dagger and wanted to give it to Ran Ran. "No." Seeing the black dagger taken out by Kong Shinmu, Xueqi looked even more nervous. "Isn't this your thing? Why not? Could it be that it has some sort of commemorative meaning?" Kong Shinmu was a little puzzled. Ran Ran looked at her with a teasing expression. "It's nothing much to commemorate it. My father gave it to me to protect myself. But there's a demonic array used by the royal family of the demon god race on it. If it falls into the hands of those supreme divine dragons, won't they know that you guys are related to me?" Xueqi said straightforwardly. "Even if you don't intend to return it to me, don't expose it before we leave. Otherwise, neither of us will have a good ending." Hearing her say this, Kong Shinmu's interest was piqued. "Then tell me, what are the uses of these 3 demonic weapons?" Kong Shinmu was quite interested. "This is the void-ripping void demon blade." Xueqi pointed at the dagger in Kong Shinmu's hand. This black dagger was embedded with 99 crystals, and there was a demonic array carved on it. According to her, this was the demonic array used by the royal family of the demon god race. If the void-ripping void demon blade is activated by demonic chi and the royal family's bloodline, it can explode with terrifying power. It can increase the attack power of the ancient demonic god bloodline in our bodies by 5 times. This is the effect of the royal family's demonic array. Of course, it can be activated by just demonic chi, but the effect won't be as good. It can only unleash 3 times the attack power. This is the instant demon ring. Then, Xueqi pointed at the black ring on Kong Shinmu's hand. This black ring seemed to contain the power of space, and it could feel the aura of the void. The instant demon ring can be activated by demonic chi, and it can directly travel through the void. It's usually used for traveling. As for battle, because its activation speed is a little slow, it's not very useful. Since its activation speed is slow, why is it called the instant demon ring? Ran Ran couldn't help but laugh. But if it can be used for traveling, it's not bad. It's just that we don't have demonic chi, so we can't activate it. To us, it's just a pile of demonic crystals. What a waste of natural resources. Xueqi looked at Ran Ran with some disdain. Then, he pointed at the last string of beads on Kong Shinmu's hand. This is the heaven-imprisoning demon bead. It's engraved with a demonic array used by the royal family. After it's activated, it can transform into a demonic chi cage. It can be considered a control-type demonic weapon. It can imprison the opponent. As long as the opponent's strength doesn't exceed 3 times your own, they won't be able to escape. These 3 items are engraved with demonic arrays used by the royal family. Originally, only the royal family of the demon god race can use them. So, it's best that you don't expose yourselves. Otherwise, both of us will be in danger. Xueqi reminded him one last time. Hearing Xueqi's words, Kong Shinmu narrowed his eyes. "How do I know if what you said is true? However, I don't intend to expose your existence right now. I'll carry these items with me for now." Anyway, Kong Shinmu didn't lack demonic crystals to forge dragon weapons. Moreover, it would take a long time before he could use demonic crystals to forge dragon weapons. After Xueqi finished speaking, Kong Shinmu put away the 4 demonic weapons. One could imagine how precious these 4 demonic weapons were to the demon god race. Each one of them might be more valuable than an ordinary divine dragon weapon. In fact, they might even be more valuable. A demonic dagger that could unleash an attack 5 times the user's strength, and a heaven-imprisoning demon bead that could imprison an opponent 3 times stronger than the user. This was too terrifying. It must be known that even if a heaven-grade dragon weapon was completely integrated, it would only increase the strength of a dragon martial artist by less than 1-fold. Chapter 4503. Kong Shinmu put away the 3 demonic weapons and the relic left behind by the void demon wind, which was the black dagger. Of course, he could not return these demonic weapons to Xueqi now. In fact, even in the future, he did not intend to return them to Xueqi, unless Xueqi used something of sufficient value to exchange with him, or directly gave him some demonic crystals. Unfortunately, Xueqi's storage pendant had been taken away by Kong Shinmu. Other than herself, she had nothing left. Naturally, she could not take out anything to exchange with Kong Shinmu. Take these 11 demonic pills and exchange them for demon hunting points to improve your strength. Kong Shinmu said to Ran Ran, "You don't have to worry about me. I will go back after I settle things." Okay. Ran Ran nodded and put away the 11 demonic pills. She walked to the door of the courtyard and suddenly turned around. "Brother Jiang, do you need any cultivation resources? I will exchange for them and bring them to you. Give me some heaven and earth treasures that contain the energy of the dragon mark." Kong Shinmu estimated the amount he needed and said to Ran Ran. Ran Ran agreed and left the courtyard. "Kong Shinmu, is she your woman?" Xueqi watched her leave and suddenly lowered her voice and asked playfully. Although she was considered a captive by Kong Shinmu's side, she was not afraid at all. After all, she knew that Kong Shinmu still had a use for her. Therefore, as the princess of the demon god tribe, she was usually more mischievous. Even in this kind of environment, she could not change it. "She is my friend." Kong Shinmu looked at her and said, "I thought she was your woman. You make it look like you want to eat me up. Seeing us together, you are obviously jealous." Xueqi rolled her eyes. "Cut the crap." Kong Shinmu shook his head. "This time, when she brings me the cultivation resources, we can set off for the dragon sealing abyss. By the way, the effect of your demonic blood sealing formation is about to disappear. Do you want to continue it?" "Really?" Xueqi looked him up and down, then shook his head and said, "Since you don't want to kill me, then why should I seal you? Moreover, even if I want to continue attacking you now, you won't give me the chance. If you want to return to the dragon sealing abyss, is it very far from Quiet Moon City? Can I ride you and fly in the sky?" At this point, Xueqi actually looked somewhat excited. As expected of the demon god race's princess. Even in such a situation, she was still so mischievous. She was not worried about her own safety at all. One day later, Ran Ran brought some treasures of heaven and earth to Kong Shinmu. These treasures of heaven and earth contained the energy of the dragon mark, and some contained the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. They were just suitable for Kong Shinmu's cultivation. Kong Shinmu was now not far from the 7th stage of the Dragon King and the 8th stage of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. With these treasures of heaven and earth brought by Ran Ran, he could definitely make a breakthrough in these 2 aspects. Even these treasures of heaven and earth could be used. It should be known that Ran Ran did not dare to exchange all of the 11 devil cores for demon hunting points. She discussed with Xiao Yuhua and the others and exchanged 3 of the devil cores for demon hunting points. A considerable part of these demon hunting points were exchanged for these cultivation resources for Kong Shinmu. As for them, for the sake of caution, they did not exchange on a large scale. Instead, they tried to contact the students in the Imperial Center District, as well as the Dragon Emperor and Dragon Emperor of Great Liang. After all, Xiao Yuhua and the others were relatively weak. If they took out the devil cores of Great Liang, it would be too shocking. Therefore, they planned to ask the Dragon Emperor and Dragon Emperor of Great Liang to exchange with them. In the end, they would give them a small portion of the demon hunting points as compensation. The devil cores of Great Liang were very precious. After all, there were not many devil commanders who could come to the Dragon Martial Continent. Every devil commander had a name and was not easy to fool. When the Dragon Emperor and Dragon Emperor of Great Liang were together, it could be said that they encountered a seriously injured devil commander and killed it. As for Xiao Yuhua and the others, even if they encountered a seriously injured devil commander, they would not be able to kill it. Therefore, they could only ask the 2 Dragon Emperors to help cover it up. This way, they could also get a lot of demon hunting points as compensation, which was naturally beneficial to both sides. As for these things, Kong Shin-mu did not know. In any case, Ran Ran had brought him treasures of heaven and earth. He took them and began to fly towards Dragon Emperor of Great Liang. The place where he landed through the gap in the sky barrier was under the jurisdiction of the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy. If he wanted to return to Flame Dragon City, it would be best for him to fly by himself. He did not even need to use the ancient space-time formation of the demonic beasts. After all, from the demon emperors that Yu Yaji had called over, he knew that the top demonic beasts of the Dragon Martial Continent had some connection with the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. Once Kong Shin-mu passed through the ancient space-time formation, it was very likely that he would be discovered by the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. Right now, he did not dare to expose himself. After all, he still had Princess Xueqi of the demon god race with him. The black dragon consciousness in his body was also a rather troublesome thing. He definitely could not let others know about it. He could only think of a way to deal with it himself. In this way, if Kong Shin-mu wanted to return to the distant Flame Dragon Emperor of Great Liang, it would probably take a long time. It would be normal for him to spend more than half a year. Wow, I'm riding a dragon. Kong Shin-mu transformed into a dragon and flew. Xueqi sat on his dragon's neck, her small hands grabbing a piece of dragon scale. She flew against the wind and shouted. Kong Shin-mu ignored her. Every time he flew past a city of dragon martial artists, he would stop and rest for a moment. Then, he would observe the situation, complete some training, and obtain the local currency. He planned to fly back while waiting for the black dragon consciousness in his body to awaken. At the same time, he would also wait for the ancient demon consciousness in the void holy magic ball to awaken. Before that, he did not intend to go directly to the dragon sealing abyss. He wanted to listen to the ancient demon consciousness and see if there was any way to deal with the consciousness of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. Before that, if he rashly returned to the dragon sealing abyss, he might face some mishaps. Along the way, Kong Shin-mu followed the prescribed order and absorbed the energy of the dragon mark in the treasures, as well as the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. After about half a month, the grade of his inherited divine dragon blood essence had finally reached the 7th level of the Dragon King. This allowed Kong Shin-mu's strength to increase by about 10%. Although it was not much, it was better than nothing. The key was still to wait for the breakthrough from the Dragon King to the Dragon Emperor. That was when Kong Shin-mu would be at his strongest. This time, Ran Ran had brought a lot of treasures to Kong Shin-mu. After all, the demonic pills that Kong Shin-mu had given her were too valuable. From Ran Ran's point of view, Kong Shin-mu deserved most of the treasures. These are enough for me to break through to the 9th level of the Dragon King. Chapter 4504. In addition to the breakthrough of the Dragon King's divine dragon blood essence, Kong Shin-mu's cultivation level was also getting closer and closer to the 8th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. During this time, watching Kong Shin-mu constantly absorb natural treasures to increase his strength, Xueqi's heart itched. She could also use the natural treasures that Kong Shin-mu used. If she were still in the demon god race, she would definitely have broken through to the 2nd tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm by now. But on the Longwu continent, Kong Shin-mu did not give her any resources. She had to rely on her own cultivation, and her progress was too slow. After all, she was not a genius. Among the demon god race's royal family, her cultivation talent was considered poor. However, her identity as the demon god race's little princess allowed her to obtain a huge amount of natural treasures. Her cultivation speed was not slow, but when it came to cultivating demonic techniques, her talent was somewhat limited. Of course, this did not hinder her identity as a little princess. She was a member of the demon god race's royal family, and no one dared to provoke her. She also had guards of Mo Feng's level following her. This time, she had really failed miserably. She had encountered an existence like Kong Shin-mu, who possessed the Black Dragon's consciousness. It had to be said that if they had not brought Kong Shin-mu along, none of this would have happened. Then the entire Longwu continent would have been abandoned, and all the dragon warriors would have evacuated. A single mistake had led to such an outcome. This made Xueqi very vexed. Now that Xueqi could not cultivate, she was very vexed. But she was with Kong Shin-mu all the time, and Kong Shin-mu did not allow her to leave his sight. Even when Kong Shin-mu cultivated and slept, he would tie her to his body. It was impossible for her to escape. This made Xueqi's teeth itch. When Jiang Shunwu was cultivating, she could only cultivate. Later, she realized that cultivating was useless. Her talent was too poor. Unless she used heavenly treasures to accumulate, there was no hope for her to break through to the next level. Therefore, he decisively asked Kong Shin-mu to go out and buy some novels and legends, and brought them back for Kong Shin-mu to read while he cultivated. In the beginning, when she read some biographies of heroes, legends and myths, she felt that they were too weak. In her eyes, those heroes were not even as powerful as the Kong Shin-mu in front of her. Although in terms of strength, perhaps Kong Shin-mu could not compare to those heroes, Kong Shin-mu's future achievements would definitely be stronger than those so-called heroes. Of course, this was under the condition that Kong Shin-mu was relying on the Black Dragon's consciousness and devouring power. If the Black Dragon's consciousness was destroyed, Kong Shin-mu would probably become an ordinary person, and he wouldn't even be considered a member of the Dragon God clan. Of course, this didn't affect Kong Shin-mu's status in Xueqi's eyes. After all, Xueqi had heard from the elders of the Demon God clan that once an ancient world destroyer dragon at the level of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon escaped, it could only possess another Dragon God clan's body. It would probably take 3 months to replace the Dragon God clan. But now, it had been several years since Kong Shin-mu obtained the Black Dragon's consciousness. From the original 15-year-old youth to the current 18-year-old youth, the Black Dragon's consciousness had never been able to occupy Kong Shin-mu's body. One could imagine that this had a lot to do with Kong Shin-mu's own willpower. As for Kong Shin-mu himself, he had thought of ways to prevent the Black Dragon's consciousness from growing. For example, every time he broke through to the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, he would return to the Dragon Sealing Abyss to prevent the Black Dragon's consciousness from appearing. Only when Kong Shin-mu broke through to the first tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm did he allow the Black Dragon's consciousness to devour a Nirvana beast. But after that, the Black Dragon's consciousness had almost no chance to come out. Without the opportunity to come out, it had no way to restore its own strength, and it had no way to fight against the owner of Kong Shin-mu's body. Kong Shin-mu didn't say these things, but Xueqi could guess. No matter what, it was already quite amazing that Kong Shin-mu had prevented the Black Dragon's consciousness from growing until now. At least it was admirable in terms of spirit. Of course, on the surface, Xueqi said that it was the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon that killed her guard, Mo Feng. In reality, she was still very unhappy with Kong Shin-mu, but she didn't say it out. Of course, Kong Shin-mu didn't know what Xueqi was thinking about. He was now thinking about how to break through to the 8th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. To be honest, it was relatively easy for him to break through to the next tier. Even if the Black Dragon's consciousness hadn't awakened and he couldn't use his devouring power, he could easily kill the first Nirvana beast with his current methods and the strength of his body. But the second Nirvana beast was not so easy to kill. It was more than 5 times stronger than the first Nirvana beast. How could it be so easy to deal with? If he couldn't kill the second Nirvana beast, Kong Shin-mu would lose a chance to condense Nirvana power, which also meant that his Nirvana power would lose a chance to become stronger. This was equivalent to a 50% increase in his strength. This was an opportunity that Kong Shin-mu couldn't easily give up. But with Kong Shin-mu's current situation, he really couldn't kill the second Nirvana beast. His physical strength was very strong, but it was only suitable for bullying some small fellows. When Kong Shin-mu was in the room, he tied Xueqi to him and thought hard while cultivating. The young lady at the side saw this and roughly guessed what Kong Shin-mu was thinking about. She asked, "Are you thinking about how to condense Nirvana power? Although it's very likely that your cultivation will be destroyed once your Black Dragon's consciousness is dealt with, I can help you if you want to improve it." "How can you help?" Kong Shin-mu asked faintly. "We, the royal family of the demon god race, have a method that can stimulate the meridians in your body, allowing the power of your blood essence to explode twice," Xueqi said, "but there are some side effects. You won't be able to use any power for 3 days. If you are willing to try, I can stimulate your meridians. This method is not only useful for the demon god race, it is also useful for the dragon god race. After all, we are all humans. There's no need." Hearing this, Kong Shin-mu decisively refused. Who knew if Xueqi would play tricks on him at this time? Once Xueqi counterattacked, Kong Shin-mu wouldn't be able to decide what to do next. Moreover, although Xueqi didn't need to harm him, she didn't need to help him either. He didn't believe that the princess of the demon god race would be so kind. "It's fine if you don't believe me." Xueqi pouted and no longer paid attention to Kong Shin-mu. She picked up a bamboo scroll beside her and continued reading. Ever since she felt that biographies of heroes were boring, she started reading romance novels. She wasn't interested in biographies of heroes, but these romance novels made her feel emotional. After all, there were some unique cultural phenomena of the Dragon Martial continent that allowed her to integrate into this environment. Chapter 4505. Kong Shinmu did not intend to use Xueqi's method. If he wanted to break through to the 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, he had to think of other ways. Perhaps, he could borrow external help. This external help was naturally the formation. Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu knew nothing about this type of formation. The key was to be able to use his devouring power before he could use it to defeat the second Nirvana beast. Kong Shinmu had previously heard of some pills that could temporarily awaken a brand new divine dragon blood essence talent. This kind of pill was extremely rare, but it definitely existed. Some dragon martial artists would use it during a life and death battle to achieve an unexpected effect and defeat an unprepared opponent in one fell swoop. Kong Shinmu could not use his devouring power now, but if he could awaken another divine dragon blood essence talent, it could also help him defeat the second Nirvana beast. Unfortunately, this kind of pill was relatively rare. Even some Dragon Emperor countries' Dragon Emperor powerhouses did not have this kind of pill. It must be known that in order to successfully refine this kind of pill, a dragon martial artist's divine dragon blood essence would need to be refined and mixed with various heavenly treasures before it could be refined into a pill. To a certain extent, the entire dragon martial continent prohibited this kind of pill from appearing. Of course, some dragon warrior elders in some clans would choose to extract the divine dragon's blood essence and talent power before they died and take the initiative to give it to the younger generation, so that the younger generation could refine this kind of dragon blood talent pill, which could be used to save their lives. This kind of dragon blood talent pill is also divided into different grades. I am currently at the 7th level of the Dragon King, so I have to use a pill refined from a dragon martial artist's blood essence that is of a higher grade than mine when I was alive. Kong Shinmu thought. It seemed that this kind of pill could only be obtained by Dragon Emperor countries' Dragon Emperor powerhouses. Unfortunately, it was not suitable for Kong Shinmu to communicate with Dragon Emperor level powerhouses. Who knew if these Dragon Emperors had participated in the battle against the Void Demons? According to Ran, the 4 Dragon Martial Academies in the Void Disk were all sending people to look for him. Once he appeared in the open, it was very likely that his whereabouts would be exposed and Xueqi would be in danger. His own actions would also be obstructed. At the very least, in terms of dealing with the Black Dragon's consciousness, only Xueqi and the others might have a way. Kong Shinmu did not trust the Dragon Warrior very much. After all, with Zhua Xiaofeng as a precedent, Kong Shinmu could not completely trust the Dragon Warrior above him. I can only try my luck. I'll go to the Imperial City of the Dragon Emperor Kingdom more often. If I can get some information about this, that would be great. On top of that, Ran and the rest might be able to break through to the Heavenly Jade District with the Demon Corps' demon hunting points. Once they reach the Heavenly Jade District, they will be able to access the most important information. Kong Shinmu was looking forward to the next year. Moreover, he estimated that based on the extent to which the Black Dragon's consciousness had overdrawn its power, it would probably take a year before it could awaken. He did not know about the Void Holy Magic Sphere, but he guessed that it should be about the same. In this year, he could not return to the Dragon Martial Academy and could only cultivate outside. After such a long time, he could directly break through to the 9th level of the Dragon King. Now that he had enough cultivation resources and time, it would not be a problem for him to break through. Most importantly, he felt that it would be a waste of time if he did not break through to the next level. Therefore, if he had the chance, he would still want to get a dragon blood talent pill. No matter what kind of talent power it was, as long as Kong Shinmu could use it, he would be able to defeat the second Nirvana beast without a problem. In order to have enough capital to exchange for the dragon blood talent pill, Kong Shinmu completed some experience missions along the way, killing some ferocious demon beasts, sacred demons, and even demon kings. When the effect of the demon blood seal formation in Kong Shinmu's body disappeared, he could even kill some weaker demon emperors after transforming into a dragon. This allowed him to accumulate a lot of experience points. These experience points were universal in the entire Dragon Martial continent and belonged to the Demon Hunters Union. The Demon Hunters Union had branches in the entire Dragon Martial continent, and Kong Shinmu only needed to accumulate some experience points to exchange for it. Moreover, The experience missions that he completed were basically the top experience missions that no one had completed for many years. Every time he completed an experience mission, he would be able to obtain a lot of demon hunter points. In the process of training and hurrying on the road, Kong Shinmu gradually made a name for himself, and was known as the Demon Slayer Dragon God in the Demon Hunters Union. This was because Kong Shinmu always appeared with a mask and a female attendant. Every time he accepted the Demon Hunters Union's experience missions, he would go and kill demon kings and even demon emperors that had lived for countless years. Most importantly, as long as it was a mission that Kong Shinmu accepted, he never failed. He obtained a huge amount of demon hunter points, but he did not use them, which made some of the Demon Hunters Union's management members very puzzled. Such a large amount of demon hunter points could be exchanged for many heaven-class dragon weapons. Unfortunately, this Demon Slayer Dragon God did not seem to be interested in heaven-class dragon weapons. Of course, this Demon Slayer Dragon God still had a weakness. He seemed to be unable to kill demon emperors that had reached the 7th tier of the rebirth realm and above. He had never accepted a demon-slaying mission of this level. But this was also normal. After all, these were demon emperors of the same level as the Heaven Awakening Demon Dragon. In their respective countries of the Dragon Emperor, they were all big shots. How could they be so easily eliminated? For example, to eliminate the Heaven Awakening Demon Dragon, one had to break into the demonic beast's territory and break through countless demonic beast formations. In the end, one had to have the power to crush the Heaven Awakening Demon Dragon to have a chance of killing it. Otherwise, one might not even be able to see the Heaven Awakening Demon Dragon. If he had heard in advance that a strong expert was coming to kill him, he would have hidden long ago or disappeared without a trace. All these circumstances added together made Kong Shinmu's name spread further and further. He traveled from the north to the southeast. Finally, after half a year, Kong Shinmu arrived at the border between the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy and the Donghuang Yonggu College. There was a Northern Mountain Dragon country here, which was a Dragon Emperor's country at the edge of the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy's jurisdiction. There were a total of 3 Dragon Emperor powerhouses in the Northern Mountain Dragon country. 2 of the Dragon Emperor powerhouses had already left the Northern Mountain Dragon country and headed to the Void Disk to fight against the Void Demons. The remaining Dragon Emperor was the most talented young Dragon Emperor in the Northern Mountain Dragon country. He was only in his 50s this year, but he had already reached the 3rd tier of the Dragon Emperor's blood essence. As for his cultivation level, he had naturally reached the peak of the rebirth realm. Dragon Emperor Bei Xue. He was a middle-aged man, but he was considered relatively young among the Dragon Emperor powerhouses. Kong Shinmu had come all the way to the imperial city of the Northern Mountain Dragon country after hearing the news. He had heard that there was a dragon blood talent elixir in the Northern Mountain Dragon country. It had been passed down by the previous generation of the Dragon Emperor and had been preserved until now. Chapter 4506. Kong Shinmu was wearing a mask, and he was waiting in the courtyard behind the Northern Mountain Dragon country with Xueqi, who was also wearing a veil. Because he had already made a name for himself, the title of Monster Slayer Dragon God could be considered a symbol. Therefore, he asked to see Dragon Emperor Bei Xue. Dragon Emperor Bei Xue asked them to wait in the courtyard behind the mountain, and he would come immediately after making some preparations. Dragon Emperor Bei Xue naturally admired a young dragon martial artist who could sweep away the demonic beasts of the northern region. If he could recruit him into the Northern Mountain Dragon country, the Northern Mountain Dragon country's power would definitely increase greatly in the future. Although such a talented young man was mostly wandering outside and had his own country, it would be difficult to get him to join the Northern Mountain Dragon country. However, Dragon Emperor Bei Xue still wanted to give it a try. Kong Shinmu and Xueqi waited in the courtyard behind the mountain. Xueqi looked around and praised the environment. The environment here is not bad. Although it is far from our palace, it is quite nice. At least it is much better than the city lord's residence in the previous cities. The palace she was talking about was, of course, the palace of the demon god race. Kong Shinmu glanced at her and did not speak. In the past 6 months, he could clearly see that Xueqi's figure was getting better and better under his care. She ate all the food he gave her, and the girl was also of age. She was still developing, and her chest was getting fuller. Even so, she still slept with Kong Shinmu every day. Kong Shinmu really could not stand it. After all, he was also a hot-blooded young man. Xueqi was such a beauty, and her figure was getting more and more alluring by the day. It would be strange if he did not have any reaction. However, when he thought that Xueqi was the princess of the demon god race, he could not do anything. This identity was too sensitive. It was not that Kong Shinmu did not dare to do anything to such a young girl, but he did not like Xueqi. What right did he have to have anything to do with her? Kong Shinmu was still in an ignorant state when it came to love. He always felt that if two people were not in love with each other, there would be no benefit in being together. The two of them waited in the North Mountain Dragon Kingdom's palace for about the time it took for an incense stick to burn before Dragon Emperor Bei Shui's figure appeared at the entrance of the courtyard behind the mountain and walked towards the two of them. It was a rather dignified middle-aged man, but he still looked relatively kind and had a strong aura. In Kong Shinmu's view, among the experts of the Dragon Emperor Kingdom that he had seen, only the Dragon Emperor of Great Liang could compare with him. In the martial dragon continent, Dragon Emperor Bei Shui already possessed top-tier talent. Back then, he might have only failed to join the 4 great dragon martial academies due to some mistakes. Logically speaking, with his talent, it should have been very easy for him to join the 4 great dragon martial academies. He came alone and soon saw Kong Shinmu and his companion. He smiled at them. Sure enough, young Master Monster Slayer is just as extraordinary as the rumors say. May I know why young Master Monster Slayer has come to our North Mountain Dragon Kingdom today? He knew that Kong Shinmu must have something to talk to him about. Otherwise, he wouldn't have come to see him directly. If he only wanted to slay demons in the North Mountain Dragon Kingdom, he could go to the Demon Hunter Association in the North Mountain Dragon Kingdom. Seeing that Dragon Emperor Bei Shui was so direct, Kong Shinmu also said directly, "I want the Dragon Blood Talent Elixir." As soon as he said this, Dragon Emperor Bei Shui's expression changed. After an hour, Kong Shinmu walked out of the North Mountain Dragon Kingdom's imperial city with Xueqi. They discussed with Dragon Emperor Bei Shui. Dragon Emperor Bei Shui felt that it wouldn't be a problem to sell the Dragon Blood Talent Elixir, but the key was to take out something that Bei Shui felt was useful to Dragon Emperor. Dragon Emperor Bei Shui didn't have much use for Demon Hunter points alone. Therefore, Kong Shinmu discussed with him and was willing to give him a mid-level origin source dragon martial technique in exchange for a Dragon Blood Talent Elixir. This condition made Dragon Emperor Bei Shui feel a little conflicted. In the Dragon Emperor Kingdom, a mid-level origin source dragon martial technique was already a top-notch origin source dragon martial technique. Of course, this was in the past. But now, the Dragon Emperor powerhouses could go to the Void Disc to fight against the Void Demons. The demon hunting points they obtained could even be exchanged for the Divine Spirit Dragon martial technique. Under such circumstances, the mid-level origin source dragon martial technique didn't seem so important. However, Kong Shinmu was still very clear about the stakes. The mid-level origin source dragon martial technique he gave was provided by Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy. It was a powerful orthodox dragon martial technique. The mid-level origin source dragon martial techniques that the Dragon Emperor powerhouses could exchange for at the Void Disc office were all miscellaneous ones that were circulated outside. The 4 Dragon Martial Academies each had their own specific dragon martial techniques. Naturally, they couldn't take out all of them. They only took out some common origin source dragon martial techniques that weren't very powerful and provided them to the Dragon Emperor powerhouses to exchange for them. Overall, the items that the students of the 4 Dragon Martial Academies could exchange for with their demon hunting points in the Void Disc were much better than what the other Dragon Emperor powerhouses could get. A mid-level origin source dragon martial technique was already the highest price that Kong Shinmu could offer. In the end, Dragon Emperor Bei Shui was still a little unwilling. He took out 3 Dragon Blood Talent Elixirs at once, and directly asked for a high-level origin source dragon martial technique. Kong Shinmu agreed. If it was a mid-level origin source dragon martial technique, he would actually be a little embarrassed. After all, the Dragon Martial Academy's dragon martial techniques were not allowed to be taught to outsiders. However, if it was a high-level origin source dragon martial technique, should he learn about the Dark Dragon Inferiority Technique? 3 Dragon Blood Talent Elixirs were enough for Kong Shinmu to break through to the Rebirth Realm while the Black Dragon's consciousness was sealed off. If not, Kong Shinmu would probably have to spend an extra year to reach that level. Using the Dark Dragon Inferiority Technique to cultivate would save him a year of time. Kong Shinmu felt that it was worth it. However, the Dark Dragon Inferiority Technique did not belong to Kong Shinmu, so he had to report it to Ran Ran first. If you want to exchange for demonic skills, I can have as many as you want. Xueqi was a little unhappy about this. If it wasn't for the fact that no one in the Dragon Martial continent cultivated the ancient demon god's bloodline, what could she not exchange for with her Rage God demonic skills? One had to know that the Rage God demonic skills were equivalent to the Divine Spirit Dragon martial techniques. The Divine Spirit Dragon martial techniques and the Rage God demonic skills were just a general term, similar to the Origin Source Dragon martial techniques. If they were to be broken down, there would be elementary, mid-level, and high-level Origin Source Dragon martial techniques. The Rage God demonic skills that Xueqi had mastered were naturally high-level Rage God demonic skills. Unlike the Divine Spirit Dragon martial techniques that she could exchange for at the Void Disc, they were basically elementary Divine Spirit Dragon martial techniques. What nonsense are you talking about? Chapter 4507. Ran quickly descended from the Void Disc. When she found out that Kong Shinmu wanted to use the Dark Dragon Inferno technique to exchange for the Dragon Blood Talent Elixir, she agreed after some consideration. To her, Kong Shinmu was her everything. Other than Kong Shinmu, the only thing she cared about was her parents' background. It was a pity that she did not have the ability to investigate her parents' background. It was related to the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy. She would probably have to wait until she was one of the top 3 in the Divine Center District, or even at the level of the Dragon Emperor's mentor before she would be qualified to investigate. Even so, she was probably only qualified to ask the elders of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy for help. She would probably have to wait until she reached the level of a super mystical dragon. At the very least, she would have to become the strongest in the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy. Only then would she have that kind of influence and right to speak. The Dark Dragon Inferno technique is not exclusive to me. Ran quickly smiled and said, "This is just an advanced source dragon technique from the Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy. Anyway, I inherited this technique from my parents. I have the right to decide whether to teach it to others. The Northern Desolate Dragon Martial Academy has no right to control me." All right. Kong Shinmu nodded. He felt a little apologetic towards Ran. After all, he was the one who caused Ran to lose her memories. Although it was not necessarily a bad thing for Ran, he knew very well that losing her memories was a huge blow to Ran. Although the memories she lost might not be good, they still represented her previous life. Immediately after, Ran and Kong Shinmu put on their veils and went to the Northern Mountain Dragon Country's Imperial City. They went to the courtyard at the back of the mountain. Ran recorded the cultivation method of the Dark Dragon Inferno technique and handed it to Dragon Emperor personally. Kong Shinmu had not cultivated this dragon technique to its peak, so he naturally could not write down the complete cultivation method. Only Ran could do it. "Senior Dragon Emperor, please inspect it." After Ran finished writing, she handed it over. She was dressed in black and had a slim figure. The seal of Emperor Shi on her wrist was also hidden, so the other party did not know her identity. However, Dragon Emperor Bei Xue would be satisfied as long as he could obtain the advanced Source Dragon martial skill. As for who Kong Shinmu and the others were, although he was a bit curious, he knew that there was no need for him to find out. If he insisted on investigating, he would only bring trouble upon himself. 3 Dragon Blood Talent Pills. Dragon Emperor Bei Xue nodded in satisfaction after checking. She smiled at Kong Shinmu and handed him a pill bottle. The 3 of them left the Northern Mountain Dragon Country's Imperial City. Kong Shinmu chose a snowy mountain that looked relatively desolate and flew towards the depths of the snowy mountain with the 2 girls. He planned to take this opportunity to break through to the 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. No matter how many times I see it, I still feel that the snowflakes are so beautiful. Xueqi sat on Kong Shinmu's dragon neck and looked at the white snow and the snowy mountains around her. She sighed with emotion once again. She had never seen such a snowy mountain in the area where the demon god race lived. According to her, the world where the demon god race lived was a barren land. There were not even many green life forms. Even if there were only some poisonous plants. It was unlike the Dragon Martial continent, which was truly like a world with life. Kong Shinmu had said more than once that it was really pitiful for her to live in a place like the demon god race. Xueqi was very happy to be able to come to the Dragon Martial continent to experience it. Hearing Xueqi's words, Ran immediately chuckled. "What a country bumpkin. You haven't even seen snow before, and you call yourself the princess of the demon god race. Humph, I won't bother with you. Xueqi stuck her tongue out at her. She now knew that the relationship between Kong Xinmu and Ran Ran was not that of a man and a woman. After knowing this, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief when she thought of Ran Ran, although she did not know why. The three of them flew toward the depths of the snowy mountain. Not long after, they came to a rather spacious col on the snowy mountain. They looked around but did not see any traces of demonic beasts or dragon martial artists. Only then did Kong Xinmu feel relieved. I will break through here. Ran Ran, protect me. Kong Xinmu instructed Ran Ran. Breaking through to the 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm would require him to deal with 2 Nirvana beasts. He must not be disturbed. Once he was disturbed, all his previous efforts would be in vain. Xueqi naturally could not make Kong Xinmu feel at ease. Therefore, Kong Xinmu chose to break through while Ran Ran was still around. Okay. Of course, Ran Ran would do her best for Kong Xinmu. She transformed into a slender black dragon and flew to the top of the snowy mountain at the side. She observed everything around her. Xueqi jumped down from Kong Xinmu's dragon neck. Under Ran Ran's supervision, she hid behind an ice peak. Then she poked her head out and looked at Kong Xinmu in the sky. She had never seen a dragon martial artist break through. She wondered if it was the same as the demon god race's breakthrough. Nirvana Tribulation Realm, Rebirth Tribulation Realm, these realms had the same names. Suddenly, a terrifying vortex of energy erupted from above. Endless Nirvana aura surged out from the vortex. Kong Xinmu's black dragon body directly rushed toward the vortex of energy. It happened to meet the Nirvana beast that rushed out of the vortex. It really is a Nirvana beast. Xueqi, who was hiding behind the ice peak, saw this situation and her eyes lit up. Previously, she knew that dragon martial artists had to defeat Nirvana beasts when they broke through, but she did not know if it was the same type of Nirvana beast as the demon god race. But now, she was sure. Whether it was the dragon god race or the demon god race, the Nirvana beast that they had to defeat when they broke through was the same type. They must have come from the same power. Where did this power come from? These Nirvana beasts were formed from extremely pure Nirvana energy. As long as a Nirvana beast could be defeated, the cultivator's cultivation realm could be improved and their talent would be enhanced. No one knew where the Nirvana beast and the Rebirth beast came from. These were giant beasts formed from the essence of these two powers. The power of Nirvana strengthened the innate abilities of the dragon martial artists and the demon god race. At the same time, it would also strengthen the essence blood of the divine dragons and demon gods, transforming them into a higher level of power that had a special effect. The power of rebirth was the same. To Kong Xinmu, the first Nirvana beast was nothing at all. He even relied on the power of his physical body to completely smash that Nirvana beast into pieces. Then, he absorbed the pure power of Nirvana into his body. But immediately after, the second Nirvana beast appeared. The second Nirvana beast was the same as usual. It was 5 times stronger than the first Nirvana beast. Even its size was 5 times bigger. As long as they could defeat it, the dragon martial artists and the demon god race would be equivalent to breaking through 2 realms. Their power of Nirvana would be even more condensed. It's really too strong. I have to take the Dragon Blood Talent Elixir. Chapter 4508. The Dragon Blood Talent Pill was swallowed by Kong Xinmu, and he soon felt the pill heat up in his body. In the next moment, the tyrannical power of the Divine Dragon's blood essence erupted. The power of the Divine Dragon's blood essence was the frost attribute Nirvana force, and it even had the characteristics of reincarnation essence. 5 elements mysterious ice force? Kong Xinmu was quite familiar with this power. It was actually the same power as the girl Xueqi, whom Yen Dragon Emperor had met previously. The 5 elements mysterious ice force was a rather powerful type of the frost attribute Divine Dragon's blood essence. Moreover, this Dragon Blood Talent Pill was refined from the power left behind by the old Dragon Emperor. It contained a part of the old Dragon Emperor's power. Logically speaking, this pill was very powerful. Even if it was a genius dragon martial artist, as long as they consumed this Dragon Blood Talent Pill, they would be able to defeat the second Nirvana beast and complete the condensation of the Nirvana force. Unfortunately, the effect of this Dragon Blood Talent Pill was too powerful. Ordinary dragon martial artists would not be able to withstand the impact of its medicinal power. Only those who had reached the level of Dragon Emperor, such as the North Snow Dragon Emperor, would be able to endure the impact of the medicinal power. But the North Snow Dragon Emperor himself was not any weaker than the original owner of this pill, so why would he need to consume some dragon blood innate pill? Therefore, this dragon blood talent pill was almost useless. Otherwise, it would have been consumed long ago, and Kong Shinmu would not have had a chance. In fact, Dragon Emperor Bei Xue did not think that Kong Shinmu only wanted the dragon blood talent pill to absorb it, and then fight against the second Nirvana beast to make a breakthrough. After all, no matter how powerful Kong Shinmu was, he was just a junior. How could he withstand the impact of the dragon blood talent pill? Unfortunately, Kong Shinmu's divine dragon body was too strong. The power of the 5 extreme mysterious ice erupted within Kong Shinmu's body and quickly spread to his surroundings. Thanks to the fact that Kong Shinmu had devoured quite a number of people's powers to counterattack, including the power of the ice attribute, he had some experience in controlling the power of the ice attribute. At this moment, he directly unleashed the power of the 5 elements mysterious ice and attacked the second Nirvana beast. The Nirvana beast did not have any attributes. It could be understood as the chaos attribute. When Kong Shinmu broke through previously, no matter how much preparation he did in advance, it was useless. He could not absorb the energy of some beasts in advance to increase his resistance against Nirvana beasts. He could only slowly absorb the chaotic energy of Nirvana beasts when he really faced them. And now, he couldn't use his devouring power. He could only use the power of the 5 extremes mysterious ice to attack the Nirvana beast. Very quickly, Kong Shinmu withstood the impact of the dragon blood talent pill's medicinal effect. Moreover, he unleashed the complete power of the 5 elements mysterious ice. The super strong power exploded immediately and forced the Nirvana beast to retreat. As the Nirvana beast roared, it also unleashed a terrifying chaotic energy to deal with Kong Shinmu's attack. Even with the strength of Kong Shinmu's divine dragon body, he couldn't withstand it and sustained minor injuries. One should know that Kong Shinmu's ability to challenge someone of a higher level was rare in the world. Even so, he couldn't defeat the second Nirvana beast easily. One could imagine that there weren't many people in the world who could start to condense the Nirvana power at the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. Unless it was a powerful dragon martial artist with a noble background who was qualified to cultivate the holy dragon martial arts technique. Fortunately, compared to those people, Kong Shinmu's foundation wasn't too far behind. However, Ran Ran and the other dragon martial artists who were born in the dragon martial continent might be lagging behind. Of course, now that the Void Disc had opened up the Demon Hunting Points reward, they could obtain the Holy Dragon Weapon and the Holy Dragon Martial Arts Technique. They still had a chance to catch up when they reached the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. Above the snowy mountains, under the blue sky. As Kong Shinmu and the Nirvana Beast fought each other, the energy exploded and spread. The commotion was enough to spread dozens of miles away. I hope no one noticed the situation here. Ran Ran observed the surroundings carefully and thought to herself. However, what she was afraid of happened. Just as Kong Shinmu and the Nirvana Beast were halfway through the battle, a few divine dragons flew over from the sky far away. Those divine dragons were obviously dragon martial artists. They sensed the situation and flew over to check it out. Among them, the Ice Divine Dragon was at the Dragon King's level and had the cultivation of the 7th stage of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. This was equivalent to the weakest superior devil spirit. Behind him were the divine dragon martial artists at the intermediate stage of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. There were 4 of them. 2 were at the 4th stage, 1 was at the 5th stage, and 1 was at the 6th stage. A total of 5 people. When they saw Kong Shinmu breaking through, their eyes lit up. Someone is breaking through here. Brothers, should we collect some money as a gift? The Ice Dragon King, who was the leader, sneered and deliberately flew to a place not far from where Jiang Shenwu and the Nirvana Beast were fighting. As the battle between Kong Shinmu and the Nirvana Beast was halfway through, both sides' energy was almost depleted. Therefore, the other party didn't realize that the Nirvana Beast that Kong Shinmu was challenging was actually the second Nirvana Beast. Although they felt that the energy waves from the battle were a little strong, they didn't think that Kong Shinmu was a strong martial artist after fighting a Nirvana Beast for so long. A dragon-level dragon weapon, let's go. They also noticed that Ran Ran and Ran Ran were watching the battle, so they immediately shouted at Ran Ran. Otherwise, he, let's make a move and ensure that he fails to break through. Once he failed to break through, it would be very difficult for him to break through in the future because the Nirvana Beast that appeared would be even more powerful. However, they didn't know that if they interrupted Kong Shinmu's battle, Kong Shinmu wouldn't fail to break through. However, he wouldn't be able to condense more Nirvana energy because he didn't defeat the second Nirvana beast. The consequences were extremely serious. This meant that his dragon blood talent elixir would be wasted. When breaking through to the Nirvana tribulation realm, no one could interrupt him. Otherwise, the challenge would be considered a failure, and the Nirvana beast would disintegrate and disappear. Therefore, it was a taboo to be interrupted when breaking through to the Nirvana tribulation realm. This was the first time that Kong Shinmu encountered a situation where someone interrupted his breakthrough. Fortunately, Ran Ran was beside him, and she definitely wouldn't let this group of people disturb him. When the other party shouted at Ran Ran, of course, had already taken action. She transformed into a dragon and flew directly to the other party's location. It had been half a year since the hole in the sky barrier was blasted open. In this half a year, Ran Ran obtained many devil pills from Kong Shinmu and exchanged them for demon hunting points. Her combat power could be said to have improved by leaps and bounds. If it was in the past, she might not be a match for the superior devil spirit. But now, she could even beat the superior devil spirit that was at the 9th level of the rebirth tribulation realm. Chapter 4509. The high-grade source dragon martial skill that Ran Ran practiced was a dragon martial skill suitable for women to practice. In Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, there were many such dragon martial techniques. This high-level source dragon martial technique was called Dark Phoenix Heart Exterminating. Although it was a dragon martial technique, it could summon several dark phoenixes. With the dark attribute talent power, it could exterminate the heart. It had the highest penetrating power and lethality. She transformed into a dark jade extreme dragon and used the heaven-grade wind death tornado break to burst forth with terrifying speed. In the blink of an eye, she appeared in front of her opponent. Dragon King, who was at the 7th level of the rebirth tribulation realm, saw this and his expression changed. He didn't know before, but now that he saw Ran Ran use the dragon martial technique, he could already feel the terrifying aura coming from her body. She's a tough one. Go around her. I'll block her. Dragon King, who was at the 7th level of the rebirth tribulation realm, directly ordered his subordinates. He ordered his subordinates to go around Ran Ran and disturb Kong Shinmu's breakthrough. As for himself, he was to block Ran Ran's attack. Under such circumstances, as long as his subordinates could go around her, he would win. Ran Ran would definitely not dare to take the risk to continue attacking them. She would definitely hand over the treasure obediently. At this time, Dragon King was thinking that this girl had such a terrifying aura. She was obviously a genius who could challenge those who were at a higher level than her. Such a genius must have some good things on her. This time, I should be able to gain a lot of things, right? It's a rare opportunity to see someone break through to the Nirvana tribulation realm. I must make good use of it. However, Dragon King's expression quickly darkened. This was because he discovered that all the subordinates he ordered to go around Ran Ran to disturb Kong Shinmu's breakthrough were blown back by a tornado halfway. Wind Death Tornado Break. This dragon martial technique had already been cultivated to the heaven stage by Ran Ran. At this moment, when it erupted, she could already freely control dozens of tornadoes. If it wasn't for the fact that her cultivation was not high enough to reach the high level of the rebirth tribulation realm, she could even control all the tornadoes around her with Wind Death Tornado Break. Those little dragon warriors were blown back by Ran Ran's Wind Death Tornado Break. As for Dragon King, who was at the 7th level of the rebirth tribulation realm, Dark Phoenix Hot Destruction. The advanced human-grade origin dragon martial technique erupted from the black dragon that Ran Ran had transformed into. A total of 4 black phoenixes first appeared in the void, then transformed into 4 streams of heart destruction force, exploding toward the Dragon King at an extremely terrifying speed. At this time, the Dragon King had just ordered his subordinates to go around. His eyes widened as he saw his subordinates being blown back by the tornado. In the blink of an eye, he was faced with such a terrifying attack. The penetrative power of the Dark Phoenix Heart Destruction was considered top-notch even among high-grade origin dragon martial skills. At this moment, the Dragon King body that he had transformed into was instantly pierced through 4 holes. Endless dragon blood gushed out from the holes and splattered on the snowy mountain. These 4 holes were not his vital parts. After all, Ran Ran only wanted to teach him a lesson, not kill him. His actions might affect the life of a dragon warrior who was in the midst of a breakthrough. It was already good enough that Ran Ran only gave him such serious injuries as punishment. The Dragon King was pierced through by the Dark Phoenix heart-piercing attack. 4 bloody holes appeared on his body, and his entire body was sent flying backward. Then, like a kite with its string cut, he landed heavily on the snowy mountain, creating a huge crater. Ran Ran's current combat strength was already quite terrifying. Although it was not as powerful as Kong Shin Mu, who could defeat a high-grade devil general, it was already invincible in the same realm. The entire battle was as smooth as flowing water. There was not the slightest bit of sloppiness. And Kong Shin Mu did not care about this at all. He continued to use the innate power of the 5 Extremes mysterious ice force to fight the second Nirvana beast. This girl's combat strength is also quite strong. Xueqi hid behind an ice mountain. She had no intention of escaping. Instead, she looked excitedly at the place where Ran Ran attacked. She was somewhat eager to try. This little princess of the demon god race was also very interested in fighting. Unfortunately, when she was in the demon god race, no one fought with her. Even if she forced someone to spa with her, the other party would just casually put on an act. Therefore, Xueqi had not encountered any decent battles until now. I also want to go up and teach this evil person a lesson. Xueqi sighed. Unfortunately, she cultivated the bloodline of the ancient demon god. What flowed in her body was not the blood of a divine dragon. If she really wanted to fight and expose the bloodline of the ancient demon god, then it would be tragic. Very soon, a super divine dragon or even a supreme divine dragon would appear and directly destroy her in the Dragon Martial continent. Right, isn't there still that move? Suddenly, Xueqi thought of an ancient demonic technique of the demon god race. She had never cultivated it before and felt that it was useless. But now, she might be able to satisfy her craving for fighting. Unfortunately, that demonic technique also required time to cultivate. She could not participate in this battle now. That demonic technique was the Desolate God demonic technique passed down by the royal family of the demon god race. Although it was only an elementary Desolate God demonic technique, its effects were not bad. It could conceal the aura of the ancient demon god bloodline and disguise one's appearance as something else. It could be a demonic beast or an immovable mountain. Previously, she had felt that it was useless. Now, it seemed that she could directly disguise herself as a dragon martial artist. Phantom God. If I had known earlier, I would have cultivated this move properly. But it's not too late to start from the beginning. Xueqi secretly made a decision. While Kong Shin Mu was cultivating, she would cultivate the Phantom God. If she succeeded in cultivating it, she could disguise herself as a dragon martial artist. Wouldn't that be extremely comfortable? Now, she felt that she was an outsider in the Dragon Martial continent. But if she cultivated the Phantom God, she might be able to integrate into this place and have fun. She might even be able to really fight with others. Just thinking about it made her feel a little excited. When Ran Ran defeated the few troublemakers with lightning speed, Kong Shin Mu's battle quickly came to an end. Originally, he had almost killed the Nirvana beast. However, the effect of the dragon blood talent elixir was almost over, so he was somewhat lacking in strength. That was why the battle had dragged on for such a long time. But the next moment, Kong Shin Mu exploded with a violent physical strength and smashed the Nirvana beast that was already riddled with scars and holes. Immediately, endless Nirvana essence fused into Kong Shin Mu's body and was completely absorbed by him. The devouring power that was in deep slumber was affected by the Nirvana essence and was being deeply condensed. This was not Jiang Shenwu's first time condensing Nirvana essence. Everything was a walk in the park for him, and he could clearly feel that he had become stronger. I've finally broken through to the 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm. One last step before I can reach the peak of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm and advance towards the Rebirth Tribulation Realm. Chapter 45:10. After reaching the 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, Kong Shin Mu could clearly feel that he had become stronger. However, it was his devouring power that had become stronger. Now that the Black Dragon's consciousness was asleep, the devouring power in his body could not be used at all. In other words, on the surface, there was no increase in his strength unless the Black Dragon's consciousness awakened. This made Kong Shin Mu a little depressed. He felt that the Black Dragon's consciousness was dangerous, but the Black Dragon's consciousness was related to his strength. If there was a choice, and he had to choose whether to awaken the black dragon's consciousness. He really did not know what to choose. Now, he could only take it one step at a time. Kong Shinmu deactivated the divine dragon form and flew towards where Ran Ran was. Of course, he sensed that someone wanted to disturb his breakthrough, but he did not care. He believed that Ran Ran would help him solve all the problems. Forget it. I won't ask who you are. Hand over your dragon weapons and demon cores. Kong Shinmu came in front of them and said straightforwardly. Although he did not think much of their things, since they had done something wrong, they had to be punished. For Kong Shinmu, these things were not important, but for the other party, these things were absolutely precious, or even the most important things on them. The 7th level of the Rebirth Tribulation Realm, Dragon King, was suddenly dumbfounded. Kong Shinmu flew back with the two girls. They did not get many dragon weapons, only 3, but many demon cores. Unfortunately, they were only at the level of Sky Demon and Saint Demon. There was not even a Demon King demon core. With the current strength of Kong Shinmu's body, this level of demon core was not even enough to heal him. At the same time, he would need several demon cores. Xueqi did not say her plan. She decided to give Kong Shinmu a surprise at the critical moment. Ran Ran, are you confident that you can enter the Tianxian district in the next school tournament? Kong Shinmu asked casually. Half and half, but Xiao Yuhua will definitely enter the Tianxian district. Her foundation is better than mine. Ran Ran said. Yes. Kong Shinmu nodded, feeling slightly relieved. If he could reach the Tianxian district, he would be able to access the core information and find out what was going on with the Chaos Heaven Devouring Dragon. Now, Kong Shinmu felt very uncomfortable. It was better to solve this matter as soon as possible. They returned to the imperial city of the Northern Mountain Dragon Country. Kong Shinmu bade farewell to Ran Ran and then continued to lead Xueqi and Xueqi towards the southeast. The direction in which Dragon Emperor Yen was heading was exactly where they were headed. After leaving the Northern Mountain Dragon Country, he arrived at the territory of Donghuang Yonggu College. However, Kong Shinmu was not afraid. He had concealed his identity, and he had Xueqi by his side. Most people would not think that he was Kong Shinmu. Now, Zhuo Xiaofeng definitely did not have the time to care about him. Outside the sky barrier, there were many powerful demons wandering around. If the Super Dragon Dean did not patrol and deal with them, the sky barrier would soon collapse. According to Xueqi, the dragon god world above the martial dragon continent was now facing the counter-invasion of the demon god race. The supreme divine dragons could be said to be unable to protect themselves. The martial dragon continent could only rely on themselves. The 8th level of the Nirvana Tribulation Realm, the 7th level of the Dragon King. In the remaining time, I can continue to advance towards a higher level. Although Kong Shinmu could not use the devouring power now, there was no doubt that he could still break through to the next level and improve the level of the divine dragon blood essence. He could also cultivate various origin source dragon martial techniques to make himself stronger. Kong Shinmu had already cultivated the dark dragon imperial filth art to the dragon level, and he was only one step away from reaching the peak of the heaven level. As for the divine dragon tyrant body art and the wind shadow flowing cloud flash, they were now about to break through to the earth level. Once these two origin source dragon martial techniques could break through, it would be a qualitative transformation for Kong Shinmu. It was extremely difficult for a high-grade origin source dragon martial technique to break through to the next level. If he had not specially let some demon emperor level powerhouses attack him when he completed some training, so that he could deliberately injure himself and then recover, the divine dragon tyrant body art would most likely still be at a very weak level. In the next 2 months, Kong Shinmu brought Xueqi to the Flame Dragon Emperor realm while mainly cultivating these two high-grade origin source dragon martial techniques. After tempering these two high-grade origin source dragon martial techniques, and after parting with Ran Ran for 2 months, Kong Shinmu finally cultivated these two high-grade origin source dragon martial techniques to the earth level. The wind shadow flowing cloud flash originally could only teleport less than 100,000 feet in a single flash. But now, it suddenly exploded to 100,000 feet, and the distance that could be teleported had increased by 10 times. Moreover, it made Kong Shinmu's perception of the void even stronger. On the other hand, the divine dragon tyrant body art doubled the defense of Kong Shinmu's physical body. Moreover, when he used power attack, defense and nimble stance, the effect was also doubled. Originally, the defense stance could increase Kong Shinmu's defense by 1 time. But now the defense stance could increase Kong Shinmu's defense by 2 times. This was a kind of qualitative transformation. If Kong Shinmu could still use the devouring power, his strength would have already reached a rather terrifying level. Of course, his base strength was still too low. Even if the dragon martial technique increased his strength by several times, in the eyes of some powerhouses, this increase was still limited. Unless I can quickly break through to the Dragon Emperor level of divine dragon blood essence, and reach the reincarnation tribulation realm. These 2 aspects affected the foundation of Kong Shinmu's strength. Now, his foundation was a little weak. Once these 2 foundations were improved, his strength would reach an extremely terrifying level. Currently, he was still not a match for Dragon Emperor Yen and the other Dragon Emperors because his foundation was too weak. However, as long as he reached the Dragon Emperor level and broke through to the reincarnation tribulation realm, he would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Dragon Emperor Yen, who was at the peak of the Dragon Emperor Yen. That would be a real transformation. Breaking through realms and breaking through to the grade of divine dragon blood essence can only be done slowly. Kong Shinmu sighed. As time passed, he was about to absorb all the treasures of heaven and earth that Ran brought down for him. Although the devouring power could not be used to fight enemies, it could still be used for cultivation. Devouring treasures of heaven and earth could still completely absorb the spiritual qi and the energy of the dragon mark. As Kong Shinmu had been training for a long time, it was not a problem for him to completely rely on treasures of heaven and earth to provide the energy of his dragon mark. The key was that he could not devour too much at one time, otherwise, it would affect the quality of his divine dragon blood essence. It had been 10 months since they had fallen from the sky dome barrier. Kong Shinmu broke through again. The grade of divine dragon blood essence had reached the 8th level of the Dragon King. His cultivation had reached the 9th level of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. Chapter 45:11. The 9th tier of the Nirvana Tribulation, the 8th tier of the Dragon King. Kong Shinmu had spent nearly a year outside of the Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Arts Academy to achieve such a breakthrough. Finally, he had not fallen behind in his progress. If he were to participate in the school tournament now, he would definitely be able to enter the Tianxian district, and even the Tianshu district would be a sure thing. Of course, there was still a huge gap between him and the geniuses like Feng Ligay and Yu Tianchong. After all, their foundations were much better than Kong Shinmu's. Most importantly, his 2 advanced origin dragon martial skills had both reached the Earth grade, which increased his actual combat prowess by a bit. After 10 months, Kong Shinmu took Xueqi to the southeast from the northern wilderness. They passed by Donghuang Yanggu College, Sacred Abyss Dragon Country, and Chouhuang Dragon Country, the hometown of the Fire Phoenix Princess. Along the way, he and Xueqi were familiar with each other. On this day, they finally arrived at the Demon Emperor Dragon Country. Kong Shinmu had once been chased here, and he had to rely on the protection of the demon beasts to escape. He had traveled directly to Donghuang Yanggu College through the ancient space-time formation. He had even been imprisoned for half a year. All of this seemed like a long time to Kong Shinmu. He had returned to the Demon Emperor Dragon Country. Now, it could be said that no one could pose a threat to him. Even the strongest reincarnation state Dragon Emperor could only suppress him, but not kill him. Before he could use the devouring power, it would not be so easy for Kong Shinmu to kill these peak Dragon Emperors. The key was that the other party was not alone. The other party was the ruler of the Dragon Emperor country. Moreover, Kong Shinmu had a demon god princess with him. This is the Demon Emperor Dragon Country. Should we continue to train? Xueqi looked a little eager. He had never seen her put so much effort into training before. Kong Shinmu was a little puzzled. Of course, he did not know that this was the Rage God Demon skill that Xueqi cultivated. She had finally mastered the Phantom Demon skill. With the Phantom God, she could disguise herself as a dragon martial artist and not expose her identity as the little princess of the demon god race. Of course, she had just mastered the Phantom Demon skill and had barely reached the human level. The Rage God Demon skill was not so easy to cultivate. It was much more powerful and difficult than the Source Demon skill. It had taken her half a year to cultivate the Phantom Demon skill to reach the human level, which was already very impressive. Of course, her talent was not very high. Among the demon god royal family, she could only be considered to be at the bottom. However, it didn't matter to her. After all, she didn't want to become a peerless expert. Training of Realm, Demon Realm. Jiang Shenwu narrowed his eyes. He had been training all this way, and it hadn't always been smooth. When he had been hunting some demon sovereigns, he had even been ambushed. In the end, he had relied on his physical body to escape with Xueqi. Xueqi also found it very exciting, which confused Kong Shinmu. Usually, the demon god princess felt very bored. After all, she had thought that even if she wanted to cross the entire dragon martial continent, she would only need to use the instant magic ring once. Why would she need nearly a year? Normally, the little princess of the demon god race felt very bored. After all, she had originally thought that even if she wanted to travel across the entire dragon martial continent, she would only need to use the instant magic ring to travel once. Why would it take her nearly a year? Almost a year had passed. If not for Xueqi's accident, the void demons would have stopped fighting. At the very least, they would not need to attack the void disk so frequently. Almost a year had passed. If not for Xueqi's accident, the void demons would have stopped fighting long ago. At the very least, they would not be attacking the void disk as frequently as they were now. Almost a year had passed. If not for Xueqi's accident, the void demons would have stopped fighting. At the very least, they would not be attacking the void disk as frequently as they were now. So now, the void monsters were attacking the sky barriers in other places. It was said that these void monsters were looking for the lost princess of the demon god race. So there was a rumor circulating in the dragon martial continent that the demon god race's princess might be alive in the dragon martial continent. As long as they found her, they would have the right to negotiate with the demon god race. But no one knew that the void demon orb had disappeared with the demon god race's princess. That was what the demon god race really cared about. As for Xueqi, she was just a little princess. No matter how much they doted on her, compared to a sacred object like the void demon orb, her status was still much lower. Demon Emperor Dragon Country. There was a gathering place for monsters in the east. This place was a barren stone forest. Many monsters lived there, and they were basically harmless to dragon warriors. For example, some demon stone beasts. Of course, if a dragon martial artist were to invade their territory, they would definitely resist and kill all the invading dragon martial artists. In the past, there were many dragon martial artists who got lost and entered this stone forest. As a result, they were directly killed by the demonic stone beasts. If not for the fact that the demon stone beasts had a leader who was an 8th-level reincarnation tribulation realm demon emperor, this stone forest would have been eradicated by the demon emperor Dragon Country long ago. And the mission to exterminate this group of demon stone beasts was issued by the demon emperor Dragon Country's Demon Hunters Association. Of course, this demon hunter mission was extremely difficult. It was not something an ordinary person could complete. The mission had been posted for a long time, but no one had ever tried to accept it. But today, a black-clothed youth and a graceful girl with a veil finally accepted the demon hunter mission to exterminate the demon stone beasts. He is the monster slayer dragon god? Many people in the Demon Hunters Association guessed the identity of the black-clothed youth. Many people exclaimed in surprise. They hadn't expected the monster slayer dragon god to come to the demon emperor Dragon Country. Moreover, he had accepted the monster hunting mission to eliminate the demon emperor of the demon stone beasts. Once he completed the mission, the demon emperor Dragon Country would become much more stable. After accepting the demon hunter mission, the black-clothed youth left the Demon Hunters Association with the graceful girl and headed in the direction of the desolate stone forest. No one dared to follow them for fear of being killed by the shockwaves of the battle. Many dragon warriors started to bet on whether the monster slayer dragon god could kill the demon emperor of the demon stone beasts. Most people bet on the demon stone beasts being killed. It was obvious that the monster slayer dragon god still had a lot of prestige in the dragon martial continent. The monster slayer dragon god had suddenly appeared from the north to the south. It was as if he was a genius disciple of some hidden dragon warrior family who had gone out to train. He had already killed countless demon emperor-level demon beasts. Even in the demon world, the monster slayer dragon god's reputation had already made many demon beasts tremble in fear. Many demon beasts had asked for help from the 4 great dragon martial academies. Unfortunately, the 4 great dragon martial academies did not care. After all, in a battle of the same level, if a demon beast was killed, it meant that it was not strong enough. Even if the situation was reversed and the dragon warriors were killed by the demon beasts, they would not care. Chapter 45:12. Demon Emperor Dragon Country. Deep within the desolate stone forest. Two demon stone beasts were conversing in the depths of the desolate stone forest. One of the demon stone beasts was squatting on the ground. From its size, it was probably 1,000 zhang tall when standing up. This was the size of a demon emperor. It was clearly a demon stone emperor. There was also a demon stone beast that stood in front of the demon stone emperor. It was over 400 meters tall and looked like a demon king-level demon stone beast. Beside these two demonic stone beasts, there was an ancient space-time formation. Normally, no dragon warrior would come to the depths of this desolate stone forest because there were too many demonic beasts in the periphery. Not to mention the existence of the demonic stone emperor. Father, I heard that the monster slayer dragon god has been heading east. Looking at the time, he should be here soon. The demon king demon stone beast said carefully, Father, do you think the monster slayer dragon god will come here? It had a worried look on its face. It was obvious that it was afraid of the monster slayer dragon god. Father is prepared. The demon stone emperor let out a low roar and said in a language that only the demon stone beast could understand, as long as the monster slayer dragon god appears, the other demon emperors will come to support us and eliminate the monster slayer dragon god. That's good. The demon king demon stone beast was relieved. Then it asked, Right, Father, this time, the dragon martial fortress has summoned demonic beasts again. They want us to go hunt void demonic beasts. Are we really going to ignore them? The appearance of the monster slayer dragon god has exhausted us demonic beasts. There are countless casualties, but the 4 dragon martial academies do not care. The demon stone emperor snorted coldly. Why should we help them hunt void demonic beasts? With the help of those dragon emperors, they have enough manpower. Moreover, what benefits can we get from hunting void demonic beasts? Dragon Emperor powerhouses could exchange demon hunting points for dragon weapons and dragon martial techniques, but demonic beasts could not exchange points for anything useful. Demonic beasts' cultivation relied purely on awakening their bloodline power. The more talented the demonic beast, the purer the bloodline power they awakened. As they continued to awaken their bloodline power, the grade of the demonic beast's bloodline would increase. From Sky Demon to Sacred Demon Beast, to Demon King, and finally to Demon Emperor. However, the Martial Dragon Continent's demonic beasts had never awakened a demonic beast that surpassed the Demon Emperor realm. This was the sorrow of the demonic beasts on the Martial Dragon Continent. Just as the Demon Stone Emperor and his son were discussing, there were already 2 dragon martialists charging into the depths of the desolate stone forest. To be more precise, it was a dragon warrior and a demon god princess. Xueqi arrived outside the desolate stone forest and directly activated the bloodline power of the ancient demon god, the 16-winged heavenly demon god. This was the first time Kong Shinmu had seen her transform into the form of an ancient demon god. She was a powerful existence at the level of a demon king, equivalent to the dragon king's inherited blood essence. Moreover, the power of her 16-winged heavenly demon god bloodline could increase the grade of her inherited blood essence as she grew up. This was a top-notch ancient demon god bloodline. The 16-winged heavenly demon god had 8 pairs of pitch-black wings and a height of more than 6,000 feet. Its pupils were as dark as night and contained endless demonic energy. Without a doubt, this 16-winged heavenly demon god was a female. Previously, Jiang Xinwu had seen the demon god race's princess guard, Mo Feng, transform into a 3-headed and 6-armed demon god. Compared to that 3-headed and 6-armed demon god, Xueqi's ancient demon god form was obviously much slimmer. Furthermore, her curves were exquisite, and she was curvaceous. If not for the terrifying demonic aura she emitted, countless people would probably think that she was a peerless beauty. The image of the 16-winged heavenly demon god did not last long. Xueqi had only just transformed when she immediately displayed the phantom demon shadow's desolate god demonic skill. She covered herself with endless demonic energy and actually disguised herself as a darkness attribute dragon king-level dragon martialist. As a result, the situation of the 2 black dragons charging into the depths of the desolate stone forest appeared. Even though your cultivation realm isn't high, your ancient demon god bloodline seems pretty strong. Kong Shinmu said with a chuckle. Of course. Don't you know who this princess is? Xueqi said proudly. After displaying the phantom demon shadow, she could move in the form of a divine dragon and was not afraid of being exposed. Moreover, this was the desolate god demonic skill. Although she had only cultivated it to the human level, it had already concealed the demonic energy in her body. Unless it was an existence of the supreme divine dragon level, it would be impossible to see her true identity. And the demonic skills that she displayed in battle were also of the darkness attribute. After concealing the demonic energy, she had completely become a darkness attribute dragon martialist. Even if she stayed together with Ran, no one would be able to tell the difference between the two. The two black dragons continued flying into the depths of the desolate stone forest. Along the way, some demon kings and demon stone beasts appeared and attacked them. In the end, they could not even withstand a moment in front of Kong Shinmu. They were directly hit by Kong Shinmu's body and were seriously injured. Some even had their demon stone bodies shattered. Something is not right. Suddenly, Kong Shinmu felt that the surrounding void seemed to have changed. It was as if some powerful aura had traveled through the void and descended into the desolate stone forest. Something is not right. It seems like there are many experts here. Xueqi's expression also changed. She was a little nervous. Could it be that I have been exposed? A supreme divine dragon has come to capture me? No, it is the aura of some demon beasts. However, they are all demon emperor level. Kong Shinmu's expression darkened. With the ability of the centipede ink beast, he spread out his perception ability to the surroundings. 1, 2, 3. A total of 8 demon emperor level auras had already surrounded the two of them in the center. Monster Slayer Dragon God, you have indeed come. A low, muffled voice came from the depths of the desolate stone forest. Then, Kong Shinmu saw a demon stone emperor that was thousands of feet tall. It walked out from the depths of the desolate stone forest. The surrounding towering stone pillars had actually become its best camouflage. At this moment, it exploded with the aura of a demon emperor, which was why Kong Shinmu had discovered it. Beside this demon stone emperor, there was a demon king demon stone beast that was more than 4,000 feet tall. It was carefully watching them. Kong Shinmu and Xueqi's divine dragon bodies seemed to be more than 5,000 feet tall. They were both dragon king level of inheritance blood essence, but the demon stone emperor did not underestimate them at all. It was very clear of Kong Shinmu's battle prowess. However, it did not know that there were actually 2 monster slayer dragon gods. Although the aura of Xueqi's black dragon form was not that strong, and it was even only at the first tier of the Nirvana Tribulation realm, her body constantly emitted an aura that made the demon stone emperor wary. Although this little princess of the demon god race had disguised herself as a dragon martial artist, the terrifying aura of the 16-winged heavenly demon god bloodline still existed. This was the suppression of the bloodline level, and it could not be concealed. Some of the strongest divine dragon inheritance blood essence also had this kind of suppression. However, such existences were rarely seen in the dragon martial continent. Kong Shinmu had not seen it before. Chapter 45:13. The Demon Stone Emperor was a little surprised, but it was not too nervous. After all, they were prepared this time. 8 demon emperors. All of them were experts at the 9th tier of the Rebirth Tribulation realm, and they were here to kill the Demon Slayer Dragon God. Demon Slayer Dragon God, you didn't expect this, right? You are surrounded. The Demon Stone Emperor spoke in a low voice as it stared down at Kong Shinmu and Xueqi. Can we beat them? Xueqi was terrified. She had rushed in excitedly, only to realize that she had been ambushed. This situation made her extremely puzzled. We can't beat them. Kong Shinmu looked around and concluded without hesitation. Then what should we do? Xueqi was dumbfounded. What else can we do? Run. Without thinking, Kong Shinmu grabbed Xueqi, who was disguised as a black divine dragon, before the demon emperor's encirclement was complete. He turned and fled into the distance. His speed was as fast as lightning. Sunset Shadow Flowing Flash. The high-grade Origin Source Dragon Martial technique was activated instantly, and the two of them traversed through space, covering a distance of 100,000 feet in an instant. 100,000 feet was a distance of a few hundred miles. The Sunset Shadow Flowing Flash, which had been cultivated to the dragon level, was already very powerful. As long as the other party was not paying attention, he could use this method to escape quickly. Wah! Xueqi was grabbed by Kong Shinmu and teleported away. She appeared in the stone forest in the distance, looking very nervous. She had already dispelled her ancient demon form and sat on the neck of Kong Shinmu's divine dragon. It was obvious that she had suffered a shock. The demon emperors are very fast, and most importantly, they seem to have left a tracking power on me. Kong Shinmu's expression changed slightly. Although he had teleported a few hundred miles away, the demon emperors did not give up. Instead, they rapidly chased after him. It was obvious that they had grasped his location. Moreover, the other party was also very fast. After all, they had reached the level of a demon emperor. Their bodies were huge, and when they used their powerful samsara power to activate some of their bloodline power, their instantaneous explosive power was extremely strong. Their usual flying speed could reach more than 10 li in a single breath of time. It could be said that they were unrivaled in the world. In just a few seconds, Kong Shinmu saw powerful auras of demon royal flying over from all directions. Hold on tight. Without hesitation, Kong Shinmu turned around and flew out of the desolate stone forest. Xueqi sat on his black dragon's neck and grabbed onto one of his black dragon scales with both hands. He could feel the hurricane that was constantly retreating around him, giving him a stimulating feeling. This wasn't the first time Kong Shinmu had brought her along to fly like this, but she still felt great every time. Most importantly, the martial dragon continent had greenery, cities, villages, rivers. As they flew, the scenery in front of them was as beautiful as a painting. It wasn't like the demon god race's world, where they were surrounded by pitch-black mountains. Run, run! Xueqi giggled as if she was riding a horse. If you laugh again, I'll leave you behind. Kong Shinmu warned. Xueqi immediately shut up, not daring to make a sound. The two of them flew out of the desolate stone forest. Behind them, 8 demon royal experts chased after them like maggots on bones. The distance between the two of them couldn't be widened. After all, Kong Shinmu's basic strength was too weak. In this kind of chase, he didn't have much of an advantage. He could only use the wind shadow flowing cloud flash every once in a while. It should be pointed out that this high-level origin source dragon martial technique required a certain amount of time to prepare. It couldn't be used casually. The devouring power in his body was sealed. If he wanted to use it, it would obviously take him a longer time. If the black dragon's consciousness wasn't sealed, maybe I could really try to deal with those peak demon royal experts. Kong Shinmu sighed. He quickly fled. The demon royal experts chased after him. It seemed like they wouldn't stop until he was dead. After all, Kong Shinmu had killed too many demon royal experts. Many of these demon royals' old friends had died in Kong Shinmu's hands. Therefore, they couldn't let Kong Shinmu go now that they had found an opportunity. They had probably left some traces on Kong Shinmu when he was in the desolate stone forest. No matter how Kong Shinmu fled, he couldn't shake them off. 3 days later, they had even flown out of the territory of the Devil Emperor Dragon Country. Kong Shinmu continued to fly in the direction of the Flame Dragon Emperor. At the same time, the 8 powerful demon royal experts were getting closer to him. 2 of them had even taken a detour and were heading forward to surround Kong Shinmu. This situation made Kong Shinmu's face darken. Until he suddenly felt that the devouring power in his body seemed to have finally obeyed his command and was loosening up. An extremely powerful consciousness seemed to have awakened in his body. Is the black dragon consciousness about to awaken? Kong Shinmu's expression changed. He didn't know if this was a good thing or a bad thing. But at the same time, he felt the dragon-scarred blood pendant that he had been carrying with him all this time suddenly tremble. It even made some crisp sounds. The dragon-scarred blood pendant, this heaven-level dragon weapon, had actually shattered at this moment. What? Kong Shinmu's expression changed. If the dragon-scarred blood pendant shattered, it would be troublesome. There were too many things in the storage space of the dragon-scarred blood pendant that could prove Kong Shinmu's identity. Once it was discovered, it could be deduced that the Devil Slayer Dragon God was a student of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Arts Academy, Kong Shinmu. This wouldn't do. What on earth caused the dragon-scarred blood pendant to shatter? I threw all the things of the Demon God clan inside. Could it be the Void Holy Magic Ball? Kong Shinmu's expression didn't look too good. What's wrong? Xueqi was still sitting on his neck. When she saw that his divine dragon eyes didn't look too good, she couldn't help but ask curiously. Of course, Kong Shinmu wouldn't tell her about this. But at the next moment, an incomparably black devouring power suddenly erupted around Kong Shinmu's divine dragon body. This devouring power enveloped Kong Shinmu's entire divine dragon body. Ah! Xueqi's petite body was flung away. She watched helplessly as the black dragon that Kong Shinmu had transformed into was enveloped by a black fog and directly fell to the ground. She initially thought that it was the work of those demon emperors. But soon, she felt a terrifying and astonishing aura condensing on Kong Shinmu's black dragon body. It's the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. Xueqi's expression instantly changed. Chapter 45:14. Not good. Seeing this, Xueqi immediately unleashed the bloodline power of the ancient demon god, the 16-winged heavenly demon god. A pair of black wings spread out, and all the things that had fallen out of the dragon's ska blood pendant were gathered into her arms. Not a single thing was left out. And the void holy magic ball jumped out of the pendant and landed in her arms. Everything was returned to its original owner. Even the things that originally belonged to Kong Shinmu were in her hands. But now, Xueqi had no time to be happy, because the consciousness of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon had awakened, and it seemed to have occupied Kong Shinmu's consciousness. This situation was extremely bad. She had originally followed Kong Shinmu to wait for the consciousness of the ancient demon god in the void holy magic ball to awaken, and then think of a way to deal with the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. But now, the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon had suddenly awakened. There's still a demon emperor chasing after us. Xueqi gritted her teeth and kept the void holy magic ball in her arms. Now she could only fight alone. I must send him to the dragon sealing abyss. The dragon sealing abyss could seal the consciousness of the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon, and it would no longer be able to occupy Kong Shinmu's body. Now the black dragon that Kong Shinmu had transformed into had lost consciousness, and had fallen heavily into a dense forest below. Around the dense forest was a continuous mountain range. Xueqi did not know which direction the dragon sealing abyss was. She only knew that she had to send Kong Shinmu to the dragon sealing abyss, or the dragon martial continent would likely be destroyed. And now that she was in the dragon martial continent, it was naturally impossible for her to survive. Once the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon truly awakened, it would be a disaster for the entire universe. She absolutely could not let the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon awaken. Other than that, everything else was secondary. And, after nearly a year of interaction, she felt that Kong Shinmu was different from the other dragon gods she had met before. Kong Shinmu was kind, and he did not have that kind of innate hostility towards her, the demon god princess. The power of the void holy magic ball cannot be used now. After all, it's too far away from the void rift, and there's even a layer of sky barrier between us. I can't summon the void aberrations over. Xueqi put away the void holy magic sphere. Right now, the void Saint Devil sphere didn't have any physical power. It only had a bit of psychic power that came from the ancient devil god's bloodline. She put away the void holy demon orb, then used the phantom god specter to disguise herself as a black divine dragon. She flew to where Kong Shinmu's divine dragon body had fallen, grabbed Kong Shinmu's black dragon body, and flew up with some difficulty. Because Kong Shinmu cultivated the body-tempering dragon martial technique, the weight of his divine dragon body far exceeded that of a dragon martial artist of the same realm. Xueqi's cultivation level was not high. He was only at the first level of the Nirvana Tribulation realm. Now that he was in the state of the phantom god, he could not fully unleash the power of the devil chi. He could only use 70% of his strength to grab Kong Shinmu's dragon body and move forward with great difficulty. The 8 demon emperors behind him didn't seem to notice the changes on this side. They quickly caught up to Jiang Shenwu, only to realize that something had happened to him. He seemed to have fainted, and was being carried by another black dragon in the air, swaying unsteadily in mid-air. The heavens are helping me. The 8 demon emperors thought this way. The monster slayer dragon god was unconscious. This was the best opportunity to kill him. Seeing the 8 demon emperors getting closer and closer, Xueqi gritted her teeth and took out 2 top-grade rage god demonic weapons. Heaven Imprisoning Demon Orb. The Heaven Imprisoning Demon Orb was activated by the power of the demon god royal family. It was a powerful demonic weapon that could trap opponents several times stronger than itself. However, Xueqi wasn't using it to trap the 8 demon emperors. After all, the heaven-imprisoning demon orb's 19 pitch-black orbs could only trap 2 opponents at most. There was no way it could trap 8 demon emperors. So now, the heaven-imprisoning demon orb under Xueqi's hand became her protective demonic weapon. Under the cover of the apparition, the heaven-imprisoning demon orb's power erupted and formed 19 layers of heaven-imprisoning barrier, protecting Xueqi within. Then, she held the instant demon ring in her hand. The instant demon ring was a demonic weapon that could travel through space. As long as the multiple void formations were activated, it could send a person thousands of miles away. To find the sealing dragon abyss, she had to first get rid of the 8 demon emperors. Xueqi immediately activated the multiple void formations of the instant demon ring. Soon, the 8 demon emperors arrived at the scene. In their eyes, the 19 layers of the heaven-imprisoning demon orb were protecting 2 black dragons. One of the black dragons had lost consciousness, while the other was fiddling with a dragon weapon in a ring. Even though they were demon emperors, they couldn't detect any demonic aura. The apparition's camouflage effect was extremely effective. Unless an unparalleled divine dragon came personally, it would be impossible to see through it. Kill! The 8 demon emperors snorted coldly and attacked. First layer of void formations, open. The instant demon ring had a total of 3 layers of void formations that needed to be opened in order to transport her away. When the 8 demon emperors started attacking, the first layer of void formations was finally opened by her demonic aura and royal bloodline. However, the attacks of the 8 demon emperors were extremely terrifying. The demon stone emperor's attack condensed into a huge mountain and crashed down, instantly crushing several layers of the heaven-imprisoning demon orb. The other 7 demon emperors joined forces and completely shattered the heaven-imprisoning demon orb's defenses. The heaven-imprisoning demon orb could trap and defend against opponents who were several times stronger than the user. However, Xueqi was too weak. With just one attack, the heaven-imprisoning demon orb's defenses were completely shattered. Kong Xinmu and Xueqi's bodies were completely exposed to the 8 demon emperors. Second layer of void formations. Open. Hurry! Xueqi didn't have time to care about what was happening behind her. She was focused on opening the void formations in the instant demon ring. The instant demon ring was originally used for traveling, not for fighting. Although it could travel a long distance, it was very troublesome to activate. Now, Xueqi had no other choice. Kill. When the 8 demon emperors saw this, they wanted to laugh out loud. Each of them used their strongest power and launched a storm of attacks at Xueqi. At this moment, there was a cracking sound. The instant demon ring's second layer of void formations had finally opened. Xueqi hurriedly grabbed Kong Xinmu's black dragon body and rolled down the side of the cliff. From the perspective of the 8 demon emperors, it looked like 2 black dragons had rolled down the cliff together. Even so, many of their attacks still landed on Xueqi's body. As the 2 black dragon bodies rolled down, Xueqi spat out a mouthful of blood and stained Kong Xinmu's black dragon body. The cliff towered high. While their tumbling dragon bodies were still in mid-air, Xueqi finally managed to open the instant demon ring's third layer of void formations with great difficulty. Immediately after, the instant demon ring exploded with a pitch-black light and enveloped her and Kong Xinmu's bodies. Chapter 45:15. The 8 demon emperors had not expected such a thing to happen. They came to the bottom of the cliff and looked at the place where the monster slayer dragon god had disappeared, somewhat baffled. How did they escape? The demon stone emperor's expression was extremely ugly. He had wanted to take this opportunity to kill the monster slayer dragon god, but he had still escaped. It's the dragon weapon. All that was left was the aura of the dragon weapon. What grade is that dragon weapon? How can it block my senses? A Treant demon emperor sucked in a breath of cold air. Even a heaven-grade dragon weapon wouldn't be able to resist its power. However, its tracking ability had been directly worn down by that dragon weapon. Now that they had lost track of the monster slayer dragon god, it was impossible for them to continue their pursuit. However, the monster slayer dragon god has fallen into a coma. We don't know what's going on. As for his companion, she was hit by our combined attack. She must not be feeling well. Activating that dragon weapon to escape was her last bit of strength. A tiger demon emperor said fiercely, I am very sensitive to the aura of life. That guy took our attack. Even if he had 10 lives, he would have lost 9 of them. The last one is barely hanging on. Even if he doesn't die, he will be seriously injured. He will have to recuperate for at least a few years. The combined attack of 8 demon emperors against 1 dragon king. It was indeed a miracle that the dragon king had not died on the spot. Although Xueqi had rolled down the cliff with Kong Shinmu in her arms and avoided a small portion of the attack, the rest of the attack had landed on her. Now that the 8 demon emperors had lost track of Kong Shinmu, it was clearly impossible for them to continue their pursuit. However, they did not leave just like that. Instead, they planned to search the vicinity. They guessed that if the monster slayer dragon god had not gone far, they might still be able to find him and kill him once and for all. That would depend on where Kong Shinmu and the others had gone with the dragon weapon. What the 8 demon emperors did not know was that they were not only pursuing the monster slayer dragon god, but also a little princess of the demon god race. It was just that this little princess had used the phantom god's demonic shadow to disguise herself as a desolate god, so she did not expose any demonic chi. Furthermore, the instant magic ring that they escaped from was not a dragon weapon, but a desolate god's demonic weapon. 10,000 miles away. Previously, in a moment of desperation, Xueqi had set a random distance and activated the instant magic ring's teleportation function. At this moment, they fell out of the void and landed on a snowy mountain. It's actually a snow mountain? Xueqi forcefully endured the endless pain coming from all over her body. She felt the black dragon she was holding become hotter and hotter. She knew that she had to find the dragon's sealing abyss as soon as possible. Her figure flickered between the 16-winged heavenly demon god and the black divine dragon, constantly switching between one another. Sometimes both figures existed at the same time. This was the camouflage of the phantom god, and it was about to dissipate. One could see that her 16-winged heavenly demon god bloodline body was already covered in blood. Her bloodline was very strong, but her cultivation realm had yet to grow. It was impossible for a 16-winged heavenly demon god's body to survive the attacks of 8 demon emperors. If she had not pulled Kong Shinmu down the cliff and avoided some of the attacks, she would have died long ago. However, even now, she was already heavily injured and on the verge of death. 11 of the 16-winged heavenly demon god's wings had already been torn into pieces by the terrifying power. The shoulder of the heavenly demon god's body had been completely destroyed, and there was a huge bloody hole in its abdomen, from which the blood of the primordial demon god flowed continuously. The blood of the primordial demon god, flowing on the snowy mountain, would leave traces of demonic chi. Even in this kind of situation, Xueqi still thought of this. She took out the black dagger that she had used to protect Mo Feng. This dagger was a desolate god's demonic weapon, and it had the power to devour all blood. Mo Feng, you've helped me again. She held the black dagger in her hand. All the blood of the primordial demon god that flowed out of her body was devoured by the black dagger, causing the blood-sucking demonic array on the black dagger to become brighter and brighter. The bloodline of the princess of the demon god race, the blood of a 16-winged heavenly demon god, was an extremely tyrannical bloodline power. If Mo Feng was still alive and used this black dagger, he would not have lost so miserably to the chaotic heaven-swallowing dragon. At the very least, he would have been able to resist for a while. Dragging Kong Shinmu's black dragon body, Xueqi climbed in a certain direction on the snowy mountain with great difficulty. In the air in front of her, the void saint demon ball spun and led the way. This holy relic of the demon god race could sense the direction of the sealing dragon abyss. Unfortunately, other than that, it had no other use. Even if it regained consciousness, it could not help Xueqi in the slightest. Pointing the way for her was already its limit. The sealing dragon abyss is still more than 100 miles away. Instant demon ring. Our time is quite coincidental. She still had to drag Kong Shinmu's dragon body for more than 100 miles. This was already an extremely difficult task for Xueqi. After all, if she did not forcefully hold on, she might have already died. But with the support of her willpower, she still persevered. Even though the bloodline of the 16-winged heavenly demon god was about to run out, she did not give up. Although she said that it was very boring in the dragon martial continent for nearly a year, she actually enjoyed this period of time. Otherwise, she would have long thought of ways to escape from Kong Shinmu's control. But all this time, she was willing to listen to Kong Shinmu. On the dragon martial continent, she came into contact with those things that were very new to her. Those things allowed her to see an even more wonderful world. She did not wish for such a world to be destroyed. In fact, She was very clear that if the primal chaos heaven-devouring dragon completely awakened, not only the dragon martial continent, even the demon god race's world, the dragon god race's world, and even all the other universes and worlds would be destroyed and devoured by the primal chaos heaven-devouring dragon. She did not wish to see such a situation. Therefore, she would definitely persevere and bring Kong Shin-mu to the Sealing Dragon Abyss. As for what would happen after reaching the Sealing Dragon Abyss, she could not think about it now. It could even be said that she had already lost the ability to think. She was relying on a single breath to drag Kong Shin-mu's black dragon body. Kong Shin-mu suddenly fell into darkness. In his memory, he was still being chased by 8 demon emperors. Suddenly, his dragon-marked blood pendant shattered. He was thinking, why did this dragon-marked blood pendant shatter? The next moment, he suddenly fell into darkness. This was an incomparably dark space without any light, and Kong Shin-mu could not even feel his own existence. Where was this? He looked around, but could not see anything. This was a space of nothingness. Suddenly, an incomparably huge figure of a pitch-black divine dragon appeared in the sky above his head. A pair of divine dragon eyes stared at Jiang Shenwu as if they were the dark moon in the darkness. This is the black dragon's consciousness. Chapter 45:16. Kong Shin-mu quickly realized that the jet-black divine dragon before him was most likely the black dragon's consciousness. The place he was at now was probably in his own space of consciousness. His consciousness space was definitely completely sealed off. However, there were actually some cracks in the sky above his head. The black dragon's consciousness had barged in. What is it trying to do? Is it really as Xueqi said? Is it the primal chaos sky-devouring dragon, an evil existence that intends to devour the entire universe? Kong Shin-mu thought to himself. He watched the huge jet-black divine dragon anxiously and sensed the rich devouring power emanating from its body. This devouring power was much stronger than the devouring power that Kong Shin-mu possessed. At this moment, the devouring power was sweeping towards him and slowly circling around his body. The huge jet-black divine dragon didn't say anything, as if it had no intention of explaining anything to Kong Shin-mu. The devouring power gradually surrounded Kong Shin-mu's consciousness. Kong Shin-mu didn't sense any ill intent from this devouring power. Instead, it gave him a familiar feeling, as if this power belonged to him. This devouring power was much stronger than the devouring power that he currently possessed. It seemed like it could devour any power and convert it into its own power. This devouring power was of a higher quality than the devouring power that he had obtained with the dragon-marked blood pendant. This power seemed to be gradually fusing with Kong Shin-mu's body. At the moment, Kong Shin-mu seemed to be undergoing a fusion process. The black dragon's consciousness was fusing the devouring power into his body. Kong Shin-mu didn't know what the black dragon's consciousness was planning. In any case, he had no way of resisting. Even if the black dragon's consciousness really wanted to devour him completely, he wouldn't be able to do anything about it. He could only let the process continue. This process didn't last long in Kong Shin-mu's senses. The higher-level devouring power quickly integrated into his body. Perhaps it was because his strength and cultivation level had reached a certain level that he could accommodate this level of devouring power. That was why the black dragon's consciousness had fused with him like this. It was also possible that the black dragon's consciousness had awakened, and the awakened chaos heaven-devouring dragon wanted to occupy Kong Shin-mu's body. In short, Kong Shin-mu had no way to resist. He quickly sensed that the fusion process between the high-level devouring power and him had reached 70% to 80% completion. At this moment, the black dragon consciousness above his head suddenly roared angrily, then dissipated like black smoke. The edge of Kong Shin-mu's shattered consciousness space was rapidly repaired at this moment. The devouring power, which was about 70 to 80% fused, suddenly stopped fusing. At this moment, it scattered in all directions as if its soul was about to scatter. What happened? Kong Shin-mu's expression changed slightly. Then, he felt a familiar power appear above his space of consciousness. It was the image of an ancient demon god, a 16-winged sky demon god. Is it Xueqi? Jiang Shenwu frowned slightly, but he soon discovered that this was not the case. This 6-winged sky demon god's body was much larger than Xueqi's demon body. Moreover, its entire body exuded an incomparably dense peak demon qi. This devil qi was not something that Xueqi could have. I am the consciousness of the 16-winged sky demon god ancestor, imprisoned in the Void Saint Magic Ball. Young man, you and I have been together for a year. The 16-winged sky demon god transmitted a faint consciousness. This was actually the consciousness of the ancient demon god in the Void Saint Magic Ball. Kong Shinmu's expression changed slightly. Why are you here? Young man, look. As the 16-winged sky demon god spoke, a long picture appeared in front of Kong Shinmu. The picture started when he fainted. Then, Xueqi brought him, risking her life to be attacked by the 8 demon royals, activated the instant magic ring, and brought him to a snowy mountain tens of thousands of miles away. Then, in a situation where she was seriously injured, she used all her strength to drag him step by step. Under the guidance of the Void Saint Magic Ball, she struggled to move towards the sealed dragon abyss. She actually has such perseverance? Kong Shinmu could not help but change his opinion of the little princess of the demon god clan. At the same time he was touched. This little girl actually did not abandon him. Even if it was because she did not want the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon to occupy his body, it was really not easy. He could clearly see that in the picture, Xueqi's injuries might be more serious than the most serious injury he had ever suffered. But she forcibly dragged him to the vicinity of the sealed dragon abyss at the risk of being seriously injured. Near an abyss, the power of the sealed dragon abyss had already appeared. She used the last of her strength to pull Kong Shinmu down into the abyss, and then used her 16-winged sky demon god body to cushion Kong Shinmu. After a loud crash, the snowy mountain and the abyss collapsed. The Void Saint Magic Ball absorbed all the demon cores and turned them into power. When the snowy mountain collapsed, it withstood the falling snow. In the picture, Kong Shinmu saw his own body. Now, he had already removed his divine dragon form and became a young man again. Moreover, he was naked and lying on the snowy ground. Lying on top of him was a young girl covered in blood. Her clothes had been torn to shreds, and she seemed to have lost her breath. The two of them were under the dome of a snowy mountain. That was an empty space under the snowy mountain that the Void Saint Magic Ball had used its final strength to create for the two of them. Under the collapsed snow, it had created a relatively safe environment. There are many dragon martialists standing guard above. The Void Saint Magic Ball's consciousness transmitted into Kong Shinmu's mind. This abyss below is already the safest place. Kong Shinmu was somewhat silent. He knew that there was indeed an army of the Dragon Emperor's dynasty standing guard near the sealed dragon abyss. Right now, the Void Saint Magic Ball had no real power, only spiritual power. It couldn't protect him and Xueqi at all. Once Xueqi's demon god body was discovered, everything would be over. Just now, I seem to have fused with the Black Dragon's consciousness's devouring power. Kong Shinmu said. Right now, the primal chaos heaven-devouring dragon has already been sealed by the power of the sealed dragon abyss. The Void Saint Magic Ball's consciousness transmitted. Is he really the primal chaos heaven-devouring dragon? Kong Shinmu still had some doubts. He didn't know if the Void Saint Magic Ball had made a mistake. His power, that all-devouring aura, I will always remember it. How could I be wrong? Chapter 45:17. Expedient Measure? Kong Shinmu did not know what expedient measure was. He only knew that Xueqi's situation was very bad. She seemed to have lost all signs of life. If he could not save her, she might. What's the point of being anxious? The ancient demon god's consciousness in the Void Saint Magic Ball seemed to have seen through Jiang Shenwu's thoughts, and a faint thought was transmitted to him. Her life is insignificant compared to the evil dragon consciousness in your body. Aren't you an ancient demon god? Aren't the demon god race your followers? Kong Shinmu was extremely surprised. He did not expect that the ancient demon god's consciousness would be so indifferent to Xueqi's life. So what? The ancient demon god's consciousness was extremely cold. You can't care about anything else now. Then what expedient measure are you talking about? Kong Shinmu looked at the scene in front of him. The young girl was covered in blood as she collapsed on top of him. That scene was extremely shocking to him. Without a doubt, if Xueqi had not used all her strength to drag him to the bottom of the dragon's sealing abyss, he would have been completely absorbed by the devouring power of the Black Dragon's consciousness. At that time, no one could predict what would happen. If what the Void Holy Magic Ball said was true, Kong Shinmu might have already been taken over by the Black Dragon's consciousness. Whether the Black Dragon's consciousness was the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon or not, to Kong Shinmu, it was the end of everything. Everything in this world no longer had anything to do with him. It was Xueqi who had used all her strength to bring him here. She had even left her consciousness to communicate with the ancient demon god's consciousness. Let me enter your sea of consciousness. The ancient demon god's consciousness transmitted. This way, my consciousness can balance the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon. If it wants to devour your consciousness in the future, I can stop it. Now this is the only way. Why should I believe you? Kong Shinmu snorted. You don't even care about Xueqi's life. Why should I believe that you will protect this world and restrict the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon? Perhaps you have other plans? Kong Shinmu knew how important his sea of consciousness was. It was likely that the Black Dragon's consciousness had accidentally infiltrated his sea of consciousness. Now that he thought about it, it was very likely that the Black Dragon's consciousness had taken the opportunity to enter his sea of consciousness when he first obtained the Divine Dragon's blood essence. That was the starting point of him becoming a dragon warrior, and also when his guard was at its weakest. This led to the current situation. If he allowed another primordial demon god to enter his sea of consciousness, who knew what would happen? Perhaps this would really destroy the entire world. If you want to save her, it's not like there's no way. Seeing that Kong Shinmu seemed to be determined, the ancient demon god's consciousness finally sighed. However, we might not be able to make it in time. The commotion here has already alerted the dragon warriors stationed nearby. If they come over to investigate, we won't have much time. Tell me the method. Kong Shinmu asked straightforwardly. Your devouring power should have recovered by now. As long as you regain consciousness, you can use devouring power to heal her. The 16-winged heavenly demon god's consciousness transmitted over. However, she has the primordial demon god's bloodline in her body, while you have the divine dragon's bloodline in your body. You may not succeed. If you want to succeed, there's only one way. First, devour the demon god's blood on her dagger. Devouring the demon god's blood may have some effect on you, but the effect is insignificant and can be ignored. After that, you will be able to use your devouring power to save her. Kong Shinmu thought for a moment, then asked again, You want to enter my sea of consciousness? What kind of method? My consciousness will be transferred directly from the Void Holy Magic Ball to your sea of consciousness. In other words, the Void Holy Magic Ball will lose all its power, and you will have my consciousness to fight against that evil dragon. The ancient demon god's consciousness said. Hearing this, Kong Shinmu had a rough idea in his mind. The ancient demon god's consciousness should not be able to be forcibly transferred to his sea of consciousness. Otherwise, it would not have asked for his opinion. Since that was the case, Kong Shinmu was too lazy to think about other things. He would save Xueqi first. Let me regain consciousness first. Kong Shinmu's expression was calm as he transmitted his thoughts. Kong Shinmu finally regained consciousness and felt the existence of his body again. He knew that he was now at the bottom of the snowy mountain where the dragon sealing abyss was located, at the bottom of the abyss at least dozens of miles from the surface. Even if the Yen Dragon Emperor's army stationed in the dragon sealing abyss noticed the commotion and came to investigate, it would take at least a few days before they could find this place. In fact, there was still plenty of time. It was just that the ancient demon god did not know much about the Yen Dragon Emperor's army stationed in the dragon sealing abyss. The strength of these dragon martial artists was very weak. If there were experts at the level of the Dragon Emperor, they might be able to find them within 4 hours. However, the Yen Dragon Emperor was still in the Dragon Martial Fortress in the sky. Currently, the Yen Dragon Emperor's court was basically governed by 6 Yen Dragon envoys. The strongest was the Yen Dragon Envoy. Even if the Yen Dragon Envoy personally came, it would take at least 3 days to find the place where Kong Shinmu and Xueqi were. If it weren't for the Flame Dragon Envoy, it would have taken even longer. Moreover, they might not have been so determined to dig to such a deep place. After all, they only felt a slight movement of the landslide. This kind of thing was relatively common in the snowy mountain. Therefore, Kong Shinmu was not worried that someone would disturb him at all. He opened his eyes first. When his vision was still a little blurry, he smelled a sweet fragrance. This familiar smell came from Xueqi's body. It was the smell of a young girl. For nearly a year, Kong Shinmu had been with this young girl every day. He could not be more familiar with the smell of her body. However, at this moment, this familiar sweet fragrance was mixed with the smell of blood. Therefore, Kong Shinmu smelled the sweet smell of blood. His vision gradually became clear. Then, he regained his senses. He felt a body pressing down on him. This body was soft and weak. It made him feel extremely pitiful. Xueqi. Kong Shinmu opened his mouth. His voice was a little hoarse. The delicate body pressing down on him did not give him any response. This dagger is the dagger she used to protect the demonic wind. Kong Shinmu looked at the dagger in her hand. The dagger was wrapped in the endless blood of the demon god. The smell of blood came from the dagger. Other than that, Xueqi's body was stained with blood. There was no blood left. All the ancient demon god's blood that had flowed out had been absorbed by this dagger. Chapter 746. Royal Bloodline. Chapter 45:18. The dagger that guarded the demonic wind had the ability to absorb blood. Now, this dagger had absorbed all of the demonic god's blood that had flowed out of Xueqi's body. Thus, it was able to cover up the sound of her dragging Kong Shinmu along the way. Along the way, the blood that had flowed out of her body had all been absorbed by this dagger. At this moment, Kong Shinmu could clearly feel that this dagger had absorbed a lot of blood. The rich, bright red color was stained with endless scarlet, and it was surrounded by an incomparably dense demonic qi. How much blood did she lose? Kong Shinmu's face darkened. Previously, he had used his devouring power to heal other dragon martial artists. He had directly devoured the power of the demonic core and then transformed it into the essence of life and blood. However, Kong Shinmu had never tried to heal a demonic god before. The Void Saint Magic Ball's ancient demonic god consciousness said that as long as I devour the blood on this dagger, I can heal her. I can give it a try. Kong Shinmu thought to himself. In any case, whether it was this dagger or the blood, they had nothing to do with the ancient demonic god consciousness. It would not give the ancient demonic god a chance to infiltrate his sea of consciousness. Kong Shinmu looked down and saw that he was holding the Void Saint Magic Ball in his hand. He threw the Void Saint Magic Ball out, and it hit the ice wall in the distance with a bang. Kong Shinmu did not trust this Void Saint Magic Ball. On the contrary, Xueqi had sent him over even if she had to lose her life. This made him feel a little touched. No matter why she had come to save him, he could not sit by and watch her die. And the Void Saint Magic Ball obviously did not dare to deceive Kong Shinmu. Otherwise, it would be fine if Kong Shinmu did not let it enter his sea of consciousness. What if Kong Shinmu, in a fit of anger, let the chaotic heaven-devouring dragon's consciousness take over his body? Wouldn't the entire universe be destroyed? Therefore, the Void Saint Magic Ball could not afford to gamble. Even though he was an ancient fiend celestial ancestor, he had no choice but to listen to Kong Shinmu and act according to Kong Shinmu's plans. After Kong Shinmu threw the Void Holy Magic Ball far away, he planned to retrieve the demonic wind dagger. His movements were very fast, as he was afraid that Xueqi would die in a short period of time. However, he quickly discovered that he was unable to take the dagger away from Xueqi's hand. She was holding it too tightly. Perhaps he was afraid that he would accidentally lose the dagger along the way and expose some clues. Kong Shinmu had no choice but to give up on taking out the dagger. He reached out and held her hand that was holding the dagger tightly. This time, Kong Shinmu held the dagger and her hand together. Then, he felt that the devouring power in his body was actually much stronger than before. It seems to be about 70 to 80% stronger. The key is the nature of this devouring power. As if it could devour any kind of power? Not only can it devour power, but it can also devour matter. Kong Shinmu's expression changed a little. However, now was not the time to think about this. No matter how much the devouring power changed, its basic function would not change. Kong Shinmu quickly devoured the blood on the dagger into his body. According to the ancient fiend celestial ancestor of the Void Holy Magic Ball, after devouring the blood, Kong Shinmu might have some side effects, but the side effects would not be too serious. This blood belonged to Xueqi. Xueqi had the bloodline of a 16-winged heavenly fiend celestial. It could be said that she was a descendant of the ancient fiend celestial ancestor of the Void Holy Magic Ball. When Kong Shinmu devoured the blood on the dagger, he discovered that he could even devour the demonic wind dagger as well. This discovery made Kong Shinmu's expression change significantly. Although it would take a very long time to devour the dagger, just this ability alone was enough to shock Kong Shinmu. It seemed that his devouring power had indeed undergone a qualitative change. I'll study this later. Right now, let's revive Xueqi first. Kong Shinmu thought to himself as he threw the transformation of his devouring power to the back of his mind. He sat up and hugged Xueqi's soft body. Then, he used his devouring power to send the blood he had just devoured back into her body. At the same time, he also tried to send his own life essence into her body. Kong Shinmu's life force was very strong, and he also cultivated the dark dragon filth control technique, so his recovery speed was very fast. Therefore, even if he gave his life essence to Xueqi, it would not affect him too much. The blood of the 16-winged sky demon god was gradually sent back into Xueqi's body, but Kong Shinmu felt as if there was a ball of fire burning in his body. The blood that belonged to Xueqi seemed to give him a strange feeling as it flowed in his body. This feeling, he had never felt it before, but now it was incomparably strong. In particular, when he lowered his head, he saw the young girl's snow-white shoulders and clearly smelled the fragrance wafting from her body. The soft touch in his arms made Kong Shinmu fall into a trance. This is the side effect? Kong Shinmu felt the ball of fire burning in his body and wanted to curse. How was this side effect negligible? How was it negligible? Perhaps, to the ancestral consciousness of the 16-winged sky demon god, this was indeed nothing. But to Kong Shinmu, this was an extremely serious torture. He used all his willpower to restrain himself. Although he was holding Xueqi's soft body in his arms, he tried hard to remind himself that he absolutely could not do anything to this young girl. As the blood that Kong Shinmu had devoured passed through her soft skin and returned to her body, her internal injuries finally began to gradually recover. Her injuries were already very serious, and she had forcefully dragged Kong Shinmu over such a long distance. This was even more of a burden to her. Even the meridians and organs in her body had completely exploded. If not for the extremely strong vitality of the 16-winged sky demon god's bloodline, she would have died long ago, and no one could save her. And when Kong Shinmu sent her blood back into her body, the blood that belonged to the 16-winged sky demon god flowed in her body. Coupled with the fact that Kong Shinmu was hugging her and touching her soft body, it made Kong Shinmu have a thought that he would not normally have. What he did not know was that this was the demon god royal bloodline of the 16-winged sky demon god. To the demon god royal family, their own bloodline was extremely precious, especially to the women. It was entrusted to them for the rest of their lives. On the day of marriage, the women of the demon god royal family would prepare a portion of their own bloodline and give it to their husband, thus elevating the relationship between husband and wife. Now, Kong Shinmu had directly received Xueqi's blood. This was the negligible influence that the Void Saint Demon Ball's ancient demon god consciousness had mentioned. At this moment, Kong Shinmu had sent the 16-winged sky demon god royal bloodline back into Xueqi's body, allowing her injuries to quickly and completely recover. She also quickly regained consciousness. When she regained consciousness, her smooth body slightly twisted in Kong Shinmu's arms. She opened her bright eyes, and the trace of innocence in them made Kong Shinmu unable to bear it. Ah! Chapter 45-19. Dragon Emperor Yen Chao. In the far north, near the Sealing Dragon Abyss, the bottom of the snow mountain, which was dozens of miles deep, was already covered in layers of ice and snow. The Dragon Martial Army stationed by the Yen Dragon Dynasty sent a few patrolling Dragon Martial soldiers up to take a look. Very quickly they left. They did not discover anything unusual and felt that this was just a normal avalanche. But what they did not know was that under the layers of ice and snow, there was a power that could destroy this world. Under the layers of ice and snow, Kong Shinmu and the girl had already separated and were both dressed. You bullied me. When I return, I will definitely report this to my father. The girl's back was facing Kong Shinmu, and her voice was soft. On the surface, she seemed to be complaining, but in fact, she did not blame Kong Shinmu at all. Kong Shinmu smiled bitterly. He had no choice but to do such a thing. The key was that he could not control himself in the end. Who knew that the bloodline of the 16-winged heavenly demon god would have such an effect? He was actually unable to control his own desires. It must be known that Kong Shinmu had faced many similar situations in the past, and he had always relied on his willpower to overcome them. But this time, he could not control himself. All of this could only be said that the bloodline of the 16-winged heavenly demon god was too powerful. This is all the fault of the ancient demon god's consciousness in the Void Saint Magic Ball. It said that the impact was negligible. Although Kong Shin-mu did not want to shirk responsibility, what he said was also the truth. Before the incident happened, who would have known that the impact that Guy said was negligible would actually be like this? That is the ancestral consciousness of the 16-winged heavenly demon god imperial family. For it has seen this kind of thing many times, so of course it does not feel that there is any impact. The girl took out a long black dress from her storage pendant. There was a cute bow at the waist, covering her enchanting body, making her look cute and pure. Since we're already in this state, I'll just have to talk to my father later, and he'll let you join our demon god race. Xueqi turned her head to the side, revealing her perfect side profile. Her red lips curled up slightly. In any case, you already possess the bloodline of the demon god race. Hearing this, Kong Shin-mu fell into deep thought. Indeed, when that happened just now, it had not only affected the relationship between him and her, it had also allowed him to obtain the bloodline of the 16-winged heavenly devil god imperial family. Even though this bloodline was not strong, it was still the bloodline of the imperial family. Most importantly, the 16-winged heavenly fiend celestial ancestor's consciousness hidden in the void holy magic ball had actually taken the opportunity to merge with his sea of consciousness. At this time, Kong Shin-mu knew that the demon god ancestor did not have any ill intentions towards him. It was true that she had only entered his sea of consciousness to restrict the black dragon's consciousness. Moreover, the demon god ancestor's consciousness told Kong Shin-mu that the 16-winged heavenly devil god imperial family bloodline was something that Xueqi had willingly offered to Kong Shin-mu. If she had not been willing, Kong Shin-mu would not have such a bloodline. In other words, the current Kong Shin-mu not only had the bloodline of the divine dragon, but also the bloodline of the demon god. Double bloodline. Dragon martial artists could cultivate dragon martial techniques and use dragon weapons. Demon god cultivators could cultivate demonic techniques and control demonic weapons. Now, Kong Shin-mu could do both. How about you return with me? Xueqi put on everything and looked at Kong Shin-mu with a smile. Although the world of our demon god race is not as lively as the dragon martial continent, it still has a special charm. Now that you have the bloodline of our imperial family, you can cultivate the demonic techniques of the demon god race. This? Kong Shin-mu smiled bitterly and shook his head. Just now, the demon god ancestor told me that as a dragon martial artist, if I return to the demon god race's world with you now, I'm afraid only death awaits me. To you, the dragon martial artists are mortal enemies. Even if you are the little princess of the demon god race, you can't protect me. Hearing Kong Shin-mu say this, Xueqi's originally innocent face immediately turned bitter. That's right, how could I forget about this? Xueqi suddenly felt a little vexed. Originally, she was willing to accept Kong Shin-mu and even wanted to bring Kong Shin-mu back with her. But in the end, with the current situation, she could either temporarily separate from Kong Shin-mu, or she could only stay by Kong Shin-mu's side and stay in the dragon martial continent. However, the demon god ancestor also said that as long as I can show enough talent and strength, the demon god race's world will be willing to accept me. Kong Shin-mu said with a smile and pressed the girl's soft shoulder. Go back first and wait for me. How about it? Since some things had been done, they definitely had to take responsibility. Kong Shin-mu was not the kind of person who would abandon others after doing something. Although Xueqi was the princess of the demon god race, and she had even once wanted to destroy the dragon martial continent, after spending a year with her, Kong Shin-mu really did not find any evil thoughts in her. This little girl had always been very innocent and cute. Although she could not be said to be kind, she had never taken the initiative to harm others. Such a girl, Kong Shin-mu would not hurt her heart. Humph. Xueqi snorted lightly. Not long after I return, I'm afraid you will have another woman. Of course, with our six-winged demon god ancestor watching you, you will not dare to act recklessly. I will believe you for the time being. Hearing her words, Kong Shin-mu had a helpless look on his face. Indeed, with the demon god ancestor watching from his sea of consciousness, he did not have the opportunity to fool around. The demon god ancestor's consciousness could not control Kong Shin-mu's actions, but no matter what Kong Shin-mu did, he would not be able to avoid the demon god ancestor's surveillance. At least it seemed impossible for now. Unless, when the time came, the black dragon's consciousness and the demon god ancestor's consciousness would restrict each other, and there would be no extra power to monitor Kong Shin-mu. This was also very likely. The demon god ancestor's consciousness can restrict the black dragon's consciousness. In other words, the problem of the black dragon's consciousness is temporarily resolved. I do not need to fear the black dragon's consciousness coming out to devour my consciousness and occupy my body. When I break through to the next realm, I also do not need to return to the dragon ceiling abyss. This matter could be considered as solving one of Kong Shin-mu's troubles. Going back and forth every time was also very troublesome. But from now on, this was no longer a problem that he needed to worry about. The only thing that he needed to worry about was how to bring Xueqi out of the Dragon Martial Continent. Other than the students of Emperor Shi's Dragon Martial Academy, there was no way to use the Emperor Shi formation. Therefore, it was impossible to use the Emperor Shi formation to go to the Dragon Martial Fortress. He could only go the way of the Dragon Emperor Nation. Because of the appearance of the Void Crack this time, the 4 Dragon Martial Academies had recruited many Dragon Emperor Nation powerhouses from the Dragon Emperor Nation and given each of them a Void Mark that could teleport them to the original Void Disk, which was the current Dragon Martial Fortress. Chapter 45-20. Of course, Kong Shin-mu would not be at ease if Xueqi left alone. He planned to go with Xueqi, at least to the vicinity of the Void Chasm. Once there, she would be able to return to the world where the Demon God clan lived through the Void Chasm. As if knowing of Kong Shin-mu's plan, the Demon God ancestor's consciousness sounded in Kong Shin-mu's mind. Do you know where to go out of the Void Chasm? The Demon God ancestor's consciousness came. It is a land of chaos, a place where dozens of races fight. Even if the little princess reaches the Void Chasm, it will not be easy for her to return to the Demon God clan's world alive. Do you know why the void demonic creatures attack the Dragon Martial Continent once a month? That is because they must gather enough troops to pass through the land of chaos and send the void demonic creatures over. 1 or 2 demonic creatures. It is impossible to pass through the land of chaos. How will she return alone? Hearing the demon god ancestor's words, Kong Shin-mu's expression changed. Clearly, he did not expect such a situation. Then, I will escort her back. Kong Shin-mu thought about it, and there was only one way. He was the only one who could protect Xueqi now. Once the others in the Dragon Martial Continent knew that she was the little princess of the Demon God clan, they would be lucky if they did not kill her, let alone escort her back. Although it was dangerous, Kong Shin-mu would not shirk his duty. You will still die if you escort her. The Demon God ancestor's consciousness came. There is no other way. I can't let her stay in the Dragon Martial Continent. Kong Shin-mu frowned. The Demon God clan will definitely not let the matter rest after losing track of the little princess. As long as I send her back, this war should temporarily come to an end. At least our Dragon Martial Continent will not become the main battlefield. If I want to improve, I must borrow the resources of the Dragon Martial Academy. As for the Demon God bloodline, it is not easy to cultivate. I cannot focus on cultivating the Demon God bloodline. When Ancestor Fiend Celestial learned of Kong Shin-mu's thoughts, he was immediately rendered speechless. Very quickly, it thought of a solution. Why don't we directly hand the little princess over to the demonic creatures near the Void Fissure for protection, and let them inform the Demon God race's powerhouses to pick her up? This way, both of you will be safer and won't have to take risks. All right. Kong Shin-mu thought about it and felt that it was a good idea. Out of the Void Crack was a chaotic land where dozens of races were fighting. The Dragon God clan and the Demon God clan were just 2 of the races. In fact, the Dragon God clan and the Demon God clan were both part of the Human clan. It was just that their cultivation and the people they believed in were different. From the information sent by the Ancestor Demon God, Jiang Shenwu found out that the other races in the area where the chaotic battlefield was located were all extremely terrifying existences. For example, the Demon Gods. The members of the Demon God clan were demonic beasts, or rather, extremely powerful demonic beasts. The demonic beasts on the Martial Dragon continent were all members of the Demon God clan that the Dragon God clan had captured from the Demon God clan. They were existences like slaves, similar to void demonic creatures. In the Demon God clan, they had no status and were relatively weak. Therefore, these demonic beasts were placed on the Martial Dragon continent as training partners for the Dragon martial artists. The demonic beasts had reproduced generation after generation on the Martial Dragon continent. They had even forgotten that they belonged to the demon god clan. That was something that had happened thousands of years ago. The demonic beasts reproduced and lived in such a harsh environment that they could not remember many things from before. Any individual member of the demon god clan was an existence that surpassed any demonic beast. Why didn't the demonic beasts have the bloodline of a high-level demon emperor? It was because they were originally members of the lowest level of the demon god clan. Their bloodline level was very low, and they would almost never be able to reach the 4th level of the demon emperor in their lifetime. This was the limit of the demonic beasts on the Martial Dragon continent. As for the demon god clan, many of them were born with the bloodline of a demon emperor. When they reached adulthood, they would directly reach the level of a demon god. The demon god clan was equivalent to the level of a super divine dragon. Even existences at the level of demon gods, super divine dragons, and demon gods did not dare to say that they were invincible on the chaotic battlefield. This was because there could be supreme existences appearing on the chaotic battlefield at any time. The chaotic battlefield was given the word chaotic for no reason. Dozens of races were fighting on the chaotic battlefield. At the same time, the chaotic battlefield was connected to thousands of small worlds. For example, the Martial Dragon continent was just one of the small worlds connected to the chaotic battlefield. Even the Demon God Clan Great World and the Dragon God Clan Great World were connected to the chaotic battlefield. It was an extremely dangerous place. Kong Shinmu really did not have the confidence to pass through the chaotic battlefield with Xueqi. But if the powerhouses of the Demon God Clan came to take Xueqi back, this was obviously a good idea. Kong Shinmu nodded. Then let's do it. He had not yet made plans to leave the Martial Dragon continent. In the Martial Dragon continent, he could still become stronger. At the very least, he had to cultivate his strength as a dragon martial artist to a higher level. He had to reach the pinnacle level in the 4 great dragon martial academies. To Kong Shinmu, this was just a matter of time. I will contact Dragon Emperor Yen now and ask him to come back and take us away. After Kong Shinmu made up his mind, he finally decided to contact Dragon Emperor Yen. After a year, he had finally resolved the issue of the Black Dragon's consciousness. At least for now, with the restriction of the demon god ancestor's consciousness, he did not need to worry too much about the Black Dragon's consciousness causing trouble. Therefore, he could continue his journey of cultivation. Emperor Shi Dragon Martial Academy. He had not returned for a long time. As for the Martial Dragon Fortress above the sky barrier, he had been longing for it for a long time. Xueqi, as the little princess of the Demon God clan, could not stay in the Martial Dragon continent. Once she was discovered by the Supreme Divine Dragon, she would face the most terrifying danger. Therefore, Kong Shinmu had to send her away. 3 days later, Dragon Emperor Yen brought 6 Flame Dragon envoys and returned from the Martial Dragon Fortress. He secretly met with Kong Shinmu in Flame Dragon City. Kong Shinmu had absolute trust in Dragon Emperor Yen. If even Dragon Emperor Yen did not trust him, then no one would dare to trust Kong Shinmu. Kong Shinmu did not tell him about Xueqi's identity. He only said that he had a friend who wanted to go to the Martial Dragon Fortress with him. But he had not joined the Dragon Martial Academy yet. Therefore, he needed Dragon Emperor Yan's help. Kong Shinmu was not lying to Dragon Emperor Yen. He just did not tell him about Xueqi's identity. And this was obviously for the good of Dragon Emperor Yen. Chapter 45-21. Dragon Martial Fortress. This was a defensive fortress built in the sky above the Dragon Martial continent, where the barrier in the sky had been blasted open. It mainly had the offices of the 4 Dragon Martial Academies and the headquarters of the Dragon Emperor Alliance. The Dragon Emperor Alliance was a new organization that all Dragon Emperor powerhouses in the Dragon Martial continent could join. It had only been established this year. Dragon Emperor Yen, Dragon Emperor Liang, and other powerful Dragon Emperors had all joined the Dragon Emperor Alliance. The Dragon Emperor Alliance had the backing of the deans of the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. To a certain extent, some of the policies were arranged by the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. Of course, the Dragon Emperor powerhouses of the Dragon Martial continent also had a lot of say in the Dragon Emperor Alliance. This organization was not controlled by the 4 Dragon Martial Academies. The Dragon Emperor Alliance was also responsible for fighting for more benefits for the Dragon Emperors. It was mainly related to the exchange of intermediate and advanced source dragon martial techniques, including the Holy Spirit dragon martial techniques. Originally, the dragon martial techniques that the Dragon Emperor powerhouses could exchange for were mostly marginal dragon martial techniques. They were of a high grade, but they were not very powerful. In actual battles, they had very little effect, and they were not much stronger than the elementary source dragon martial techniques. However, with the continuous fighting of the Dragon Emperor alliance, some practical dragon martial techniques were circulated from the 4 dragon martial academies, and the Dragon Emperor powerhouses among the people could cultivate them. This was a great improvement for the Dragon Emperor powerhouses among the people. Including the current Yen Dragon Emperor and the Great Liang Dragon Emperor, their strength was much stronger than before. The members of the Dragon Emperor alliance had the advantage in numbers, and their overall strength was very strong. Although they were not young anymore, it was precisely because of this that they had more say. As for the 4 dragon martial academies, it was basically the deans of the 4 super dragon martial academies who were suppressing them. Apart from the deans of the 4 great super dragon academies, the Dragon Emperor mentors of the various dragon martial academies were also very powerful. However, there were too few of them. Each dragon martial academy only had 20 to 30 Dragon Emperor mentors. In total, there were only about 100 of them. Compared to the thousands of civilian Dragon Emperor, the number was still too small. This is the Martial Dragon Fortress. Kong Xinmu brought Xueqi and followed Dragon Emperor Yen to the Martial Dragon Fortress. The place where they appeared was the square of the Martial Dragon Fortress. Looking out from the fortress square, one could see a vast starry sky. The starry sky was facing a rift in the void, which was the rift where the void demons appeared. On both sides of the fortress square, there were countless magnificent buildings built around the Dragon Martial Fortress. Each of these buildings was very imposing. Among them were the headquarters of the Dragon Emperor Alliance, the offices of the 4 Dragon Martial Academies, and some commercial organizations that had appeared after the opening of the Dragon Martial Fortress. For example, the Demon Hunters Association. In fact, the Demon Hunters Association did not only have many branches in the Dragon Martial continent. It was a behemoth that ran through the entire Dragon God race. At this moment, the Demon Hunters Association had also built a headquarters on the Martial Dragon Fortress to handle matters related to the Demon Hunters Association. Of course, the current Martial Dragon Fortress rarely had anything to do with monsters or the Demon God race. However, the Demon Hunters Association seemed to be preparing for the future and making some arrangements. These things were something that many people did not understand. The Martial Dragon Fortress was clearly built to fight against the Void Demons. Why did the Demon Hunters Association want to join in the fun? However, Kong Xinmu now understood that the rift in the void was connected to the chaotic battlefield. Right now, this passage seemed to be controlled by the Demon God race. Once this passage was discovered by other races, it was very likely that powerful demon gods would appear and attack the Dragon Martial continent. At this time, the Demon Hunters Association's role was highlighted. This Martial Dragon Fortress is really grand. Kong Xinmu looked around and felt a little emotional. Without a doubt, this was even more grand than the 4 great Dragon Martial Academies. In fact, it was almost the same as the 4 great Dragon Martial Academies added together. Moreover, those who walked around the Martial Dragon Fortress were all experts at the level of the Dragon Emperor. In the 4 great Dragon Martial Academies, only students who had reached the Tianxian district would take the initiative to come here. Otherwise, once they left the Martial Dragon Fortress, they might encounter an accident and die. Although the void beasts outside were constantly being eliminated, to the demon god race, these void beasts were like livestock with no status. It did not matter how many of them died. Hence, more and more void beasts were sent over. Every month, a large number of void demons would pass through the rift in the void and attempt to break through the sky barrier of the Dragon Martial continent to find the whereabouts of the demon god race's little princess. Kong Xinmu suddenly saw that on some bulletin boards and on the walls of some buildings, there were some missing persons notices. They were mainly looking for the demon god race's princess. Unfortunately, there were no portraits on these missing persons notices at all. They only said that they were looking for the demon god race's princess. Who knew what the demon god race's princess looked like? Xueqi was currently in the Martial Dragon Fortress, but she was hiding her demon god bloodline aura. No one knew her identity. Even if they saw her face, they would not know that she was the demon god race's princess. That girl is really pretty. TSK. Unfortunately, She seems to be a junior brought up by the Dragon Emperor's dynasty. It's not convenient for us to make a move. There are too many juniors like this brought up by the Dragon Emperor to the Martial Dragon Fortress. But what's the use? If they can't raise their own strength, it's impossible for them to gain a foothold in the Martial Dragon Fortress. That's not necessarily true. What if this pretty girl gets together with a student from the Dragon Martial Academy? Wouldn't that be a leap into the Dragon's Gate? Some of the Dragon Emperor's experts, or the juniors brought by the Dragon Emperor's experts, discussed this after seeing Xueqi. These people were similar to the Flame Dragon envoy. They had all followed their respective Dragon Emperor's experts to the Martial Dragon Fortress to fight and accumulate demon hunting points. However, there were always some who did not strictly restrict themselves. They felt that coming to the Martial Dragon Fortress was just for fun. Xueqi naturally could not be bothered with them. Humph. This is your territory now. I can only bear with it. Xueqi clenched her small fists tightly, her small face somewhat red. I've remembered their faces. If there's a chance, I'll definitely teach them a lesson for you. Kong Shinmu looked in the direction of the discussion. His eyes filled with determination. Xueqi immediately giggled and said, "Don't talk big. If you can't beat him when the time comes, that would be really embarrassing. Not to mention a few juniors from the Dragon Emperor's country. Even if the Dragon Emperor of their country came, he might not be a match for me." Kong Shinmu was still very confident in his own strength. He coldly snorted. Kong Shinmu, long time no see. I've heard from Ran that you've been training in seclusion. It seems like your training in the past year has been pretty good. Chapter 45-22. Dragon Emperor Yen had made great progress in the past year, but it was nothing compared to Kong Shinmu. The seniors who were on good terms with Kong Shinmu, such as Ran, had already explained that Kong Shinmu was cultivating in the Longwu continent. They did not suspect anything. Many people knew that the barrier in the sky had been blasted open, but few knew that it had something to do with Kong Shinmu. Even the Supreme Divine Dragon only knew that a mysterious and powerful black dragon had appeared and seemed to have perished together with the sacred relic of the demon god race. As for Kong Shinmu's disappearance, it was not a big deal to the Supreme Divine Dragon. The Supreme Divine Dragon did not have the time to care about the situation in the Longwu continent. They had encountered trouble on the chaotic battlefield. After catching up with Dragon Emperor Yen, Kong Shinmu bade farewell with Xueqi. After leaving the Longwu fortress, they arrived in the void. Only Kong Shinmu and Xueqi were left. Of course, in Kong Shinmu's sea of consciousness, there was also the consciousness of the demon god ancestor. After leaving the sealing dragon abyss, the black dragon consciousness in Kong Shinmu's mind quickly woke up. As soon as it woke up, it discovered that there was another existence in Kong Shinmu's sea of consciousness. This made it go crazy. The demon god ancestor and the black dragon consciousness. Both sides were staring at each other in Kong Shinmu's sea of consciousness, unable to do anything to the other. When either side wanted to affect Kong Shinmu's body, the other side would act to balance it out. It could be said that the balance in Kong Shinmu's body had been maintained. Whether it was the demon god ancestor or the black dragon consciousness, they were both much stronger than Kong Shinmu. Now, in Kong Shinmu's sea of consciousness, neither could do anything to Kong Shinmu. I want him to inherit my power. How dare you stop me? The black dragon's consciousness broke through several times, but it was unable to break through the obstruction of the demon god ancestor's consciousness. It was furious. Ancestor demon god snorted coldly. Don't you want his body to grasp your power first, then you can control his body and destroy the world? Thou, unreasonable. The black dragon's consciousness was probably about to explode from anger. However, with the restrictions of the god-fiend ancestor, he really could not do anything to Kong Shinmu. For now, the two of them were in a balance. Kong Shinmu didn't have to worry about them for the time being. In the void above the Martial Dragon continent, Kong Shinmu sped towards the crack in the void. He transformed into a dragon and flew, bringing Xueqi along with him. She sat on his neck and grabbed his black dragon scales. The black dragon's body sped through the void, streaking across the pitch-black void. Kong Shinmu could sense that there were many powerful existences in the surroundings. There were the auras of dragon martialists, as well as the auras of void demons. However, Kong Shinmu ignored them. He had to head near the crack in the void and convey Xueqi's news to the experts of the demon god race. On this trip, the most important thing was to avoid the dragon martialists along the way. This void had now become the battlefield between the dragon martialists and the void demons. Kong Shinmu had already seen many corpses along the way, most of which were void demons. Even if there were traces of the dragon martialists' deaths, their corpses had already been retrieved by the martial dragon fortress. Suddenly, a group of dragon martialists appeared in front of Kong Shinmu's flight path. There were a total of 4 Dragon Emperor-level dragon martialists, and they actually blocked Kong Shinmu's path. Kong Shinmu frowned slightly, secretly guessing who it was. It didn't look like they were passing by, but more like they were waiting for him. Kong Shinmu, you cowardly tortoise, you've finally appeared. A gloomy voice came from the front. This voice was very familiar to Kong Shinmu. It was Donghuang Yonggu College's Chu Qingyun. Behind Chu Qingyun were the 3 dragon martialists that had been following him. There were 2 women and 1 man, and each of them were already at the 3rd level of the Samsara realm. Moreover, they had reached the 2nd level of the Dragon Emperor realm. In the 1 year that Kong Shinmu had been in the Dragon Martial Continent, the cultivation of these 4 people had also risen very quickly. Even Chu Qingyun. He didn't know what kind of luck Chu Qingyun had run into, but he had actually obtained a lot of cultivation resources, allowing his strength to advance by leaps and bounds, reaching the level of his 3 lackeys. Otherwise, after this 1 year, his 3 lackeys would have long abandoned him. Helping Chu Qingyun for a period of time was a form of friendship. But if the 3 of them wanted to help Chu Qingyun who hadn't made any progress, that was impossible. Luckily, Chu Qingyun was willing to use any means possible. Perhaps he had used some vicious methods to obtain the cultivation resources he needed. Chu Qingyun. When Kong Shinmu saw the 4 of them, his expression was extremely calm. He didn't even slow down his speed. That's right, it's me. A green divine dragon coldly snorted. Kong Shinmu, today is the day of your death. You've been hiding for an entire year. You should have lived through it by now, right? You guys deliberately came out to stop me? Kong Shinmu's expression didn't change as he calmly asked. That's right. Who's that on your neck? Chu Qingyun and the others seemed to have discovered the young girl on Kong Shinmu's neck and were instantly surprised. However, they didn't think of the demon god race's princess. After all, to them, the demon god race was too distant. They hadn't even encountered the demon god race before. All they had encountered were just void demonic creatures. Who would have thought that the person with Kong Shinmu would be the demon god race's princess? They wanted to intercept and kill Kong Shinmu. When they were at the Martial Dragon Fortress, they had already seen Kong Shinmu. Hence, they came out in advance to block Kong Shinmu. The 4 of them were Dragon Emperor powerhouses, and their overall combat strength was extremely tyrannical. With the 4 of them attacking together, they felt that there would be no mistakes. Come to me. Kong Shinmu lifted his dragon claw and grabbed Xueqi, who was on his neck. Under the protection of the huge dragon claw, she felt a strong sense of security. In such a situation, there was really no need for her to do anything. Husband, you can do it. Xueqi gently encouraged him. When Kong Shinmu heard this, he immediately thought of her gentleness. He couldn't help but feel a little reluctant to send her away. But sending her away was something he had to do. And when Chu Qingyun and the others heard the word husband, their eyes nearly popped out. This young girl looked very beautiful, and from her attire, she seemed to have a high status. Although they didn't know what her status was, it was clear that she was very noble. Kong Shinmu actually had such a perfect woman? In Chu Qingyun's opinion, this young girl might be a descendant of some hidden dragon clan? His heart of jealousy burned, and Chu Qingyun wished that he could immediately kill Kong Shinmu and Xueqi. Do it! Chapter 45-23. Kong Shinmu had already expected that they would make a move. Just nice, I can test my current strength. Kong Shinmu's mood did not fluctuate at all. His pair of divine dragon eyes exuded ruthlessness. When the violent dragon martial skill of the 4 of them swept over, the devouring power in Kong Shinmu's body immediately erupted. At this moment, Kong Shinmu was at the 9th level of the Samsara realm. In this 1 year, he had made 2 consecutive breakthroughs, causing his devouring power to reach a very powerful level. Of course, the most important thing was that the black dragon consciousness had fused a stronger devouring power into his body. Although the fusion was only 70 to 80% successful, it was still a great improvement for Jiang Xinwu's devouring of nirvana energy. However, if the fusion was successful, no one knew what would happen. The devouring power of nirvana erupted in an instant. At the same time, Kong Xinmu used the high-grade Earth-grade Origin Dragon Martial skill, the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique's defensive stance. The breakthrough of the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body Technique made his defensive abilities even more terrifying. The dragon claws protected Xueqi. His entire body suddenly erupted with the power of the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body, enveloping him within it. The attacks launched by the surrounding 4 dragon warriors were actually all blocked by the power of the Divine Dragon Tyrant Body. Immediately after, Chu Qingyun discovered that the combined attacks of the 4 of them did not have any effect on Kong Xinmu. My cultivation of the dragon martial skill is not enough, and I've even lost the dragon's car blood pendant. However, devouring. Kong Xinmu's face sank, and he began to devour all the power around him, turning it into his own power. He had already tried it before. His devouring power could devour all kinds of power, even items, and crush them into pure power. At this moment, Kong Xinmu devoured all the attacks of the 4 people around him. This power naturally transformed into Kong Xinmu's own power, but it had lost its previous nature. Instead, it had turned into a surging devouring power. With such a boundless devouring power, even if he did not use any dragon martial skill, just by throwing it out to smash someone, it would have an extremely terrifying effect. Kong Xinmu didn't even need to think about it. He threw all the devouring power towards Chu Qingyun. It was like a billowing black cloud that swept outwards. And at this time, only then did Chu Qingyun and the others erupt with their own attacks. They didn't even have time to dodge. Kong Xinmu's devouring speed was simply too fast. At this time, Kong Xinmu realized that he was different from before. Previously, when he used the Dragon Mark Blood Pendant, there was a limit to how much power he could devour. But now, no matter what power or item it was, Kong Xinmu could devour it. The only difference was that the stronger the power, the slower his devouring speed would be. The devouring speed increased along with the strength of his physical body. As for Chu Qingyun and the others, their strength wasn't strong enough. Thus, Kong Xinmu was able to devour them all in an instant. They fused into a billowing devouring power that swept outwards like a black cloud, instantly enveloping Chu Qingyun. The powerful impact of the devouring power caused Chu Qingyun's divine dragon body to be smashed into pieces. Chu Qingyun didn't even have the chance to scream before he died under Kong Xinmu's hands. What? The expressions of Chu Qingyun's 3 subordinates instantly changed. Kong Xinmu, you actually dared to kill our senior apprentice brother. The 3 of them roared in anger, but there was a hint of fear and dread hidden within their roars. It was clear that they couldn't understand what Kong Xinmu had just done. It seemed like Kong Xinmu hadn't even used a single dragon martial skill. Wasn't this too terrifying? How much stronger was Jiang Xinwu's strength compared to them? He had used pure strength to crush people to death. They clearly had the inherited blood essence of the Dragon Emperor, and their cultivation was at the 3rd level of the Samsara realm. On the surface, it seemed like Kong Xinmu's divine dragon body was smaller than theirs. How could he crush them? What they didn't know was that even a high-level Samsara realm like the Dragon Emperor Yen Dragon Emperor wouldn't be much of a threat to Kong Xinmu, let alone them. Kong Xinmu, you killed a student of our Donghuang Yanggu College without permission. You're dead meat. A wind attribute dragon martial artist said coldly. After saying this, she turned around and controlled the wind attribute Samsara force to display a movement technique. She wanted to escape first. But, void-tearing void demonic blade. Kong Xinmu opened his hand. He naturally couldn't let any of the 3 go. These 3 fellows had followed Chu Qingyun and attacked him time and time again, wanting to kill him. Since they wanted to kill him, how could Kong Xinmu let them continue to exist? The current him had the bloodline of the demon god race. Although it was suppressed and hidden by the divine dragon bloodline, as long as he used Kong Xinmu's blood, he could still activate the 3 desolate god demonic weapons. The void-tearing void demonic blade was a terrifying demonic weapon that could allow the user to explode with several times the attack power. Its strength was several times stronger than a heaven-grade dragon weapon. At this moment, Kong Shinmu used the demon god race's royal bloodline to activate the void-tearing void demonic blade. Then, he blasted out the devouring power from it. The terrifying power instantly enveloped the three, completely annihilating them. It was impossible for Kong Shinmu to use this method often. He was only testing it out now. Without a doubt, if Kong Shinmu used the void-tearing void demonic blade, the instant demon ring, or the sky-imprisoning demon pearl, his combat strength would increase by another level. At the very least, he would be able to reach the level of a Heaven Center District student. Unfortunately, it was impossible for him to openly use these three demonic weapons. In the Martial Dragon continent, these methods had to be hidden. Unless there was no one else around, he could take them out to practice. Xueqi wanted to return to the demon god race world, but she planned to leave these three demonic weapons for Kong Shinmu. In any case, she could still obtain demonic weapons of this level when she returned. Leaving these three by Kong Shinmu's side could guarantee his safety. Regarding this, Kong Shinmu was naturally very grateful. No matter what, the more methods he had, the more he could rely on them to become stronger. In the end, he still needed to have enough strength to openly go to the demon god race world. Originally, he was a pure dragon martial artist. But now that he had the bloodline of a 16-winged sky demon god, he was no longer a pure dragon martial artist. After learning of the existence of the Chaos Battlefield, Kong Shinmu no longer considered things from the perspective of the Martial Dragon continent. Let's go! Kong Shinmu killed Chu Qingyun's three subordinates with the void-tearing void demonic blade and then ignored them. He didn't even take away the dragon weapons on them. Before leaving, Kong Shinmu created the illusion that these four people had been killed by void monsters, and then directly left the scene. When others discovered them, they would never think that they were killed by Kong Shinmu. The void crack was getting closer and closer. There were also more and more void monsters in the surroundings. Kong Shinmu was originally a little nervous, but as he neared the void crack, he discovered that some of the surrounding void monsters had respectful expressions towards him. They didn't dare to attack him at all. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.